Daisy didn't expect her phone to explode with notifications at 1:07 a.m. She was half asleep on her couch, wrapped in an old fleece blanket, the TV still on from a documentary she wasn't really watching. When the vibration buzzed again and again, she frowned, grabbed the phone, and blinked through groggy eyes. 5 security alerts, all from Reggie's mansion. All tagged Bianca's name. Her heart slammed so hard that she sat up straight. She tapped the first video and froze. The footage showed a small figure on the edge of the driveway, hood up, backpack slung over one shoulder. The camera switched angles automatically as the figure walked with quiet confidence toward the front entrance. Daisy leaned closer, squinting. Then the hood slipped back just enough for her to see the familiar puff of curls. Bianca, her 9-year-old daughter, at Reggie's mansion, at 1 a.m. If her breath had a sound, it would have been glass-breaking. She dropped the phone on her lap, scrambled for it again, and replayed the video with shaking hands. The footage didn't change. Bianca walked right up to the keypad next to the large double doors. She stood on her toes, typed in the code Daisy thought had been changed years ago, and the lock clicked open like the house had been waiting for her. Bianca didn't hesitate. She didn't sneak. She walked inside like she belonged there, like she'd done it before. Daisy's stomach flipped. Her hands went cold. Her mind raced. Why is she there? How long has she been doing this? Why didn't Reggie tell me? How did she even know the new passcode? Every question felt heavier than the last. She clicked the second video. Bianca stepped into the hallway, still recorded in crisp, expensive security footage, then headed straight for the stairs, straight to the second floor, straight toward the wing that used to be their family space. Daisy pressed her lips together to hold back panic. The third alert played automatically, Bianca moving down a hallway, the same hallway Daisy used to walk at night when she still lived there. The same hallway she avoided thinking about because it held too many memories she worked hard to bury. Her chest started to ache. She clicked the fourth video. Bianca slipped into her old bedroom. Daisy recognized the door instantly. The same pastel paint. The same little golden handle shaped like a star. The same frame Reggie had insisted on keeping because Bianca pointed at it in the store and said, "This one makes me happy." Daisy covered her mouth. The fifth alert showed nothing but silence. No more movement. Just Bianca curled into the bed that shouldn't even exist anymore, sleeping like it was her natural place, like she never left. Daisy sank into the couch, breath short, heart pounding against her ribs. Her first thought, what is Reggie doing letting her wander around at night? Her second thought, why is my baby running there instead of talking to me? Her third thought, one she didn't want to admit, why does that house still look like it's waiting for us? She closed her eyes, but the confusion throbbed behind her forehead. Reggie had money. Reggie had space. Reggie had a lifestyle built on privilege and rooms that stayed untouched for years because he could afford for memories to sit still. But Daisy, she had the reality of single motherhood, schedules, the real weight of parenting, falling on her shoulders day in and day out. She thought she had accepted that their lives were completely different now. She thought she had made peace with the breakup, with the change, with the distance. But seeing her daughter sneaking into that mansion, the same mansion Daisy walked away from, split open old wounds she didn't want to revisit. Her mind ran wild. What if she slipped on the marble floors? What if someone dangerous got near her? What if Reggie was asleep and didn't notice she walked in? What if... Daisy jumped to her feet. This wasn't something she could sit and wonder about. This wasn't a moment to overthink. Her daughter had walked into a billionaire mansion alone at 1 a.m. Someone had to answer for that. She grabbed her keys, her purse, and her coat in one motion. Just as she was heading toward the door, she glanced back at the phone still lighting up with footage thumbnails. A wave of anger washed through her. Irresponsible. Living in a world where everything was protected by guards and cameras and walls so high that danger didn't touch him, but it touched her. She stomped to her car. As she drove into the night, streetlights flickering across the windshield, more memories forced their way forward. Memories she'd kept locked in a corner of her mind she didn't visit often. Late-night talks in the kitchen when they were still partners. Bianca's first steps across the living room rug. The time Daisy found Reggie asleep on the couch with Bianca sprawled across his chest. Moments she had loved, moments she had buried, moments she believed she'd moved on from. But tonight, they all rushed back as she sped through the quiet Chicago streets. Her hands tighten around the wheel. Why didn't Reggie say anything? Why is my baby choosing that house over mine? Her vision blurred slightly. She blinked hard. She was hurt. The pain surprised her. It had been years since she allowed herself to feel anything connected to Reggie besides frustration or disappointment. But now, seeing Bianca run to him in the middle of the night, awakened feelings she thought she had let die, she shook her head, forcing herself to focus. This wasn't about Reggie. This was about Bianca, her daughter, her world. By the time Daisy turned into the long private drive leading to Reggie's gated property, her pulse was thudding in her ears. The mansion lights glowed softly through the trees, warm, inviting, powerful. The same glow she once admired from the balcony when their life felt whole. She slowed to a stop outside the gate, pressed the intercom button. No one answered. Fine. She entered the code. Yes, she still remembered it. And the gate opened with a smooth, expensive hum. Every choice, every heartbreak, every moment that led to the quiet space between her and the man who used to be her future. She parked in front of the mansion. The house stood tall, bold, and too familiar. Daisy stepped out of the car, locking it behind her. Cold air brushed against her cheeks. The night was quiet, too quiet. Her coat swayed as she walked toward the front door. Every step made her heart beat louder. Inside, lights flicked on. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Reggie stood there, hair messy, wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants, eyes widening as he took her in. He looked stunned, genuinely stunned. Daisy didn't give him a second to speak. We need to talk, right now. The shock in his expression cracked slightly, revealing something vulnerable, something she didn't want to see, something that made her chest tighten. But she pushed the feeling away. Right now, she wasn't here for emotions. She was here for answers. Welcome back to Stories by Mr. Flex, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. Reggie stood in the doorway, blinking as if he wasn't sure she was real. The hallway lights behind him cast a warm glow over his face, softening the sharp features that once made Daisy melt and later made her furious. Now, that same face only made her pulse quicken with questions she wasn't ready to answer. He opened his mouth, but Daisy lifted a hand before he could speak. Where is she? Reggie hesitated for half a second, glancing over his shoulder as though he already knew the answer but was afraid to say it. Daisy pushed past him. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't need it. Her daughter was here, somewhere, in this enormous house, and Daisy intended to find her. The moment she stepped inside, a familiar smell hit her, cedarwood and vanilla. The same scent Reggie had used for years, the one she couldn't escape for the longest time after the breakup. It had clung to her sweaters, her hair, her skin. Now it clung to the house like it hadn't aged at all. The floors gleamed. The walls stood tall. Everything felt exactly as she left it. Exactly. Reggie closed the door behind her. She's upstairs, he said quietly, in her room. Her room? Daisy felt her throat tighten. She didn't turn around. If she saw his face right now, her emotions would shatter into something she wouldn't be able to control. She climbed the stairs quickly, her steps echoing across the open space. Each step brought back another memory of the life they shared here. Bianca's tiny footsteps learning how to climb these same stairs, Daisy carrying laundry baskets while Reggie teased her about overworking herself. Quiet nights when they'd talk for hours halfway up the steps because they didn't want the conversation to end. She reached the second floor and moved down the hallway with determined strides. The soft lighting made everything feel too calm for the storm inside her chest. She stopped in front of Bianca's door, the same door she had watched in the security footage. Daisy took a slow breath, then pushed it open. Daisy stood frozen in the doorway. She looked at peace. It hurt. It hurt in a way Daisy didn't expect, because Bianca had that same peaceful sleep at Daisy's townhouse, but seeing her like this, in a room that hadn't changed, in a house Daisy once considered her own, twisted her chest. Reggie appeared beside her, hands in his pockets, voice lowered. She came in on her own, he whispered. I didn't even know. Daisy clenched her jaw. She didn't answer him. Her eyes drifted around the room. It looked untouched. Same pastel colors Bianca picked when she was 6. Same stuffed animals arranged on the shelf. Same little desk with crayons still neatly packed in the drawer. For a moment, Daisy felt like she had stepped into a memory instead of the present. Reggie shifted beside her. "I never changed anything," he said softly. "I wanted her to feel like she still had a home here." Daisy shot him a look sharp enough to cut glass. "A home?" she repeated. Reggie swallowed. "I didn't mean it like—" "But you did," Daisy snapped in a whisper so she wouldn't wake Bianca. "You always do." He just stood there, heavy with something she couldn't name. She looked at Bianca again, then stepped back into the hallway, closing the door gently. Daisy walked a few feet away, putting distance between herself and the wave of emotion threatening to rise. Her hands found her hips, elbows bent as she tried to steady her breath. Reggie leaned against the opposite wall, watching her carefully. "She isn't supposed to know the code," Daisy said through clenched teeth. Reggie nodded once. "I never gave it to her. She typed it in like she's done it 1,000 times. Reggie winced. "I know." Daisy narrowed her eyes. "So explain." "I'm trying," he said quietly. "But I don't know how she learned it." Daisy rubbed her forehead. She felt overwhelmed and angry and confused and strangely nostalgic all at once. "This isn't safe," she said. "She's 9. She shouldn't be wandering around like this. You have a property the size of a small stadium and she can just walk in like it's nothing. I swear to you, Daisy, I had no idea she was coming here." "Don't swear," she muttered. He closed his eyes briefly, breathing in like he was gathering patience. "I'm telling the truth." So she just magically got past the gate, magically walked up to the front door, magically knew the code, magically found her room in the middle of the night. "Daisy." "No," she snapped. "Don't daisy me. I'm being serious." His shoulders softened, not out of defensiveness, but out of guilt. He looked down at the floor for a moment before lifting his eyes again. "She's been doing things I didn't expect lately," he admitted. "She's more independent now, more curious. She's always been smart, but I guess I didn't realize how much." The honesty in his voice caught Daisy off guard. He wasn't being dismissive. He wasn't brushing her off. He wasn't acting like the old Reggie who lived behind pride and silence. This Reggie sounded unsure. She didn't like that it made her heart soften, not even a little. Daisy exhaled slowly. "Did you leave the code written down somewhere?" "No." "Did someone else know it?" "No." "Did you tell anyone the old code?" "No." Every answer felt like a brick in a wall she didn't know how to climb. Daisy pushed off the wall and started walking toward the stairs. "I'm taking her home." Reggie followed a step behind. "I get that, but what?" Her voice echoed down the staircase. He stopped at the top and stared at her, something heavy in his expression. "She keeps coming back here for a reason." Daisy paused mid-step. Those words struck deeper than she wanted them to. A reason. Bianca wasn't the type to wander just because she could. She wasn't reckless, she wasn't careless, she was emotional, she was thoughtful, she was observant. And she was hurting in ways Daisy might not fully understand. Still, Daisy shook her head, refusing to let the thoughts settle. "That doesn't matter," she insisted as she reached the bottom of the stairs. "She can't keep sneaking around like this." "I agree," Reggie said, following her down. His voice softened as he reached the landing. "I want to help figure out why she's doing it." Daisy raised her chin, trying to ignore the way his tone made something flutter inside her chest. "We'll talk about that later. Right now, she comes home with me." Reggie nodded. "All right." They walked back up to Bianca's room together. Daisy opened the door gently and approached the bed. She brushed a hand over her daughter's forehead, heart softening instantly. Bianca stirred just enough for her to whisper, "Come on, baby, let's go home." Bianca mumbled something, eyes half closed, arms stretching toward her mother. Daisy lifted her carefully, cradling her against her shoulder. The familiarity of the weight made her chest tighten. Reggie stepped back, giving Daisy the space to carry Bianca out of the room. Daisy walked past him without a word. He followed at a respectful distance. When they reached the front door, Daisy shifted Bianca slightly and looked at Reggie for the first time since stepping inside. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. "We talk." Reggie nodded. "I'll be here." She didn't answer. She walked out into the night, Bianca resting on her shoulder, the cold air cooling her heated emotions just enough to think straight. As Daisy buckled Bianca into the back seat, She noticed something. Her daughter's face was peaceful, content, almost relieved. That bothered her more than anything else. Daisy slid into the driver's seat, started the car, and pulled away from the mansion. The long driveway seemed even longer this time, stretching between who she was and who she used to be. As she exited the gate and turned toward home, her heart thudded with a painful clarity she didn't want to face. Bianca wasn't sneaking into danger. She was sneaking into comfort, into something she missed, into something Daisy had spent years convincing herself didn't matter anymore. But now she couldn't ignore the truth clawing at her chest. Something was happening, something she didn't understand yet, something she needed to get to the bottom of, before it tore their family into pieces they couldn't put back together. Daisy didn't sleep. She tried. She tried more than once, lying on her left side, then turning to her right, then sitting up and flipping her pillow over to the cooler side. But sleep refused to come. Her mind kept replaying every second of Bianca slipping into that mansion like it was her natural home. By the time sunlight crept through the blinds of her bedroom window, Daisy was still wide awake. She blinked at the ceiling, her hands tucked under her head, the same questions from the night before still pressing against her chest. What made Bianca run there? Why didn't she tell her? Why did she look so comfortable in that room? She heard little footsteps padding down the hallway, light, familiar steps. Bianca peeked into her room, curls messy, eyes half open, wrapped in her favorite blanket like a small burrito. "Mommy," she mumbled. Daisy forced a gentle smile. "Good morning, baby." Bianca climbed onto the bed, curling against her side. Daisy brushed a hand down her daughter's back. "You okay?" Daisy asked softly. Bianca nodded into her shoulder. Not when Bianca's little body was still warm with sleep. Instead, she kissed her forehead. "Let's get ready for the day, okay?" Bianca nodded sleepily. Daisy pushed the rising knot of fear deep down. She needed to stay calm. She needed to think clearly. And she needed to talk to Reggie. That thought alone made her stomach twist. After breakfast, once Bianca settled onto the couch with her tablet, Daisy slipped into the hallway and grabbed her coat. She leaned against the wall for a moment, trying to steady her breath before grabbing her keys. "Baby," she called gently, "I need to step out for a bit. I'll be back soon." Bianca looked up from her tablet. "Can I come?" Daisy hesitated. Not this time. Bianca nodded, unbothered, too unbothered. That alone worried Daisy. Normally Bianca asked questions. Normally she clung a little. Normally she cared about where Daisy was going. This silence felt heavy. Daisy gave her another kiss on the cheek and headed out. The drive to Reggie's mansion felt even longer in the morning daylight. No shadows, no panic, just clarity, too much clarity. She pulled up to the gate and waited for it to open. As the iron bars slid apart, Daisy felt something uneasy pool in her stomach. She parked, took a breath, stepped out. The mansion stood still and quiet, the same commanding presence it always had. The kind of place that didn't just sit on land, it dominated it. Daisy never forgot how overwhelming it could feel when she first moved in years ago. She walked up the steps and knocked firmly. A moment later, the door opened and Reggie appeared again, hair damp, fresh shirt, face alert. He had clearly been waiting for her. "Morning," he said quietly. Daisy didn't exchange pleasantries. "We're talking now." Reggie stepped aside. "Come in." She walked through the doorway, the familiar scent hitting her again. Memories swirled like dust in a room that hadn't been touched in years. Reggie followed her into the living room. The room was as cavernous and polished as ever. Large windows, tall ceilings, curated art pieces, everything reflecting a lifestyle Daisy had stepped away from but never fully escaped in her mind. Reggie motioned for her to sit, but Daisy remained standing. "I don't want this dragged out," she said. "I want the truth." His eyes softened. "I'm not hiding anything." "Then explain this," Daisy said, pulling out her phone. She set it on the table and tapped the security alert footage again. Reggie watched quietly as Bianca appeared on screen, walking confidently, typing the code, stepping inside. When the clip ended, he ran a hand down his face. "I told you, I didn't know she was coming," he said quietly. "How did she get the code?" "I don't know. Reggie, I'm serious," he said, lifting his hand slightly. "I didn't give it to her. I didn't leave it lying around. I didn't update it since we separated." Daisy stared at him. "So, You're telling me the code to your multi-million-dollar home stayed the same for all these years? He sighed. I know it sounds careless, but it wasn't intentional. I just couldn't bring myself to change it. Daisy blinked. Why? Reggie leaned back slightly, shoulders sinking. His gaze drifted toward the hallway upstairs, the same hallway Bianca had walked down at 1 a.m. That code, he said slowly, was ours. It was the same one we set together when we moved in. His voice lowered. I guess keeping it made the house feel less empty. Daisy's throat tightened. She didn't want that answer to affect her. She didn't want any answer to affect her. But it did. She crossed her arms, grounding herself again. Reggie, this isn't about nostalgia. It's about responsibility. She could have gotten hurt. I know, he said again, voice steady. And I take that seriously. Daisy paced the living room slowly. What scares me isn't just that she came here, she said. It's how comfortable she looked doing it. Reggie nodded, eyes shadowed with a worry she hadn't seen from him in years. I get it. No, I don't think you do, Daisy said. Bianca didn't sneak like a child being reckless. She moved like she belonged here, like it was natural, like this is where she goes when life feels complicated. Reggie's jaw tightened. I noticed that too, he admitted. When I walked into her room last night and saw her asleep there, it felt like time froze. Daisy's heart skipped. She hadn't known he went in to check. He didn't say that earlier. Reggie continued, quieter now. She looked so peaceful. I didn't want to wake her. Daisy turned away, emotions rising. She wasn't ready for the clarity in his tone. She wasn't ready for the sincerity. She wasn't ready for the reminder that he wasn't just a billionaire. He was a father who loved his daughter. She swallowed hard. We can't let this continue. Reggie nodded. I agree, but we need to understand why. Reggie looked at her carefully. You think she's upset about something? I think she's hiding something, Daisy said, and she's using this house to cope. Reggie opened his mouth to respond, but Daisy lifted a hand. I'm not finished. He stopped. Daisy let her arms fall to her sides. This house represents something to her, something she thinks she can't get anywhere else. Maybe comfort, maybe memories, maybe stability. I don't know yet. But she's trying to tell us something with her actions, and we haven't been listening, Reggie said softly. Daisy looked up at him, startled by the truth of his words. Reggie took a cautious step closer. I should have noticed something was wrong. I should have asked more questions. I should have... Stop, Daisy said sharply, though her voice softened as she finished. This isn't about guilt. Silence settled between them, thick but not hostile, just full. Daisy paced again, feeling the air shift. I'm going to talk to Bianca tonight. Reggie nodded once. Good, but I need something from you first. Anything. Daisy turned toward him fully. No more assumptions, no more silence, no more brushing things aside until they explode. We deal with this together. Reggie's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Surprise, hope, fear, all tangled together. Together, he repeated, voice low. The word hung in the air longer than Daisy expected. She took a step back. I mean for Bianca, that's all. He nodded, but Daisy could tell the word lingered for him in a different way. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I have to go. Reggie walked her to the door. Keep me updated. She opened the door, stepped outside, but stopped just before leaving. Her voice softened, unplanned. Reggie, her room looks exactly the same. His expression shifted. Yeah, why? He swallowed. Because it was the only part of this house that ever felt warm. Daisy didn't know how to respond to that, so she didn't. She walked to her car, opened the door, paused for a breath, and slid inside. As she drove down the long driveway, she felt something she wasn't expecting. Not anger, not confusion, not frustration, but the sense that something much deeper was about to surface, something Bianca wasn't saying, something the house had held quietly all these years. Daisy tightened her grip on the wheel as she headed home. Tonight, she would talk to Bianca. Tonight, she would ask the questions she'd been avoiding. Tonight, she would get answers, and she had no idea how much those answers would change everything. Daisy stood at her kitchen counter later that afternoon, staring blankly at the half-finished sandwich on the cutting board. She had tried to make lunch, but her thoughts kept drifting back to one image, Bianca curled up in that pastel room upstairs, in Reggie's mansion, sleeping like she was exactly where she wanted to be. The memory settled in Daisy's chest like unwelcome weight. She wiped her hands on a paper towel and checked on Bianca, who was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, building something with her plastic blocks. She hummed quietly, lost in her world. Daisy watched her for a moment, trying to see if there was a clue, a sign, anything that explained why her daughter kept sneaking out in the middle of the night. But nothing about Bianca's behavior looked out of the ordinary. If anything, she looked lighter today. That bothered Daisy more than she wanted to admit. She cleared her throat. "Baby, Mommy needs you to rest for a little bit. You were up late last night." Bianca nodded without argument, a rare, unsettling compliance. "Okay." The townhouse fell silent. Daisy pressed both palms against the kitchen counter and let out a long breath. She needed answers, and she knew exactly where those answers waited. The mansion. The place she had once lived. The place she had once believed she would raise her family. She grabbed her coat. The drive was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engine. Chicago's winter sky looked heavy, the type of gray that carried history instead of snow. Traffic was light, giving her no time to delay or rethink the decision. She needed clarity, and she needed to confront it directly. When she turned onto Reggie's private road, her grip tightened on the wheel. The mansion appeared over the hill like it always had, steady, bold, unchanging. But today, Daisy didn't let its size intimidate her. She didn't let memories distract her. She drove straight to the front, parked, and exhaled before stepping out. The mansion door opened before she reached it. Reggie stood there, wearing a navy sweater and jeans that looked too casual for the man she used to know. He had clearly been waiting. "You came," he said softly. "We're not doing small talk," Daisy answered. "Take me to her room." He nodded without hesitation. "Okay." She walked past him, and the cedar vanilla scent hit her again. She kept moving. She didn't want the house to feel familiar. She didn't want old emotions creeping in. She needed to focus. They climbed the stairs silently. The air felt different today, not heavy, not warm, but suspended, like something important was waiting to be uncovered. At the end of the hallway, Reggie stopped at Bianca's door and stepped aside so Daisy could enter first. Daisy pushed the door open. Her heart clenched instantly. Everything looked the same as the night before, but seeing it in daylight made the room feel even more frozen in time. The pastel walls, the cloud-shaped rug, the small desk, the star-shaped door handle, her daughter's favorite stuffed animals positioned carefully as if someone had dusted them that morning. Daisy stepped deeper into the room. Her eyes traced the details she had forgotten, the details she had tried to forget, the details she didn't expect to still exist years later. The framed photo on the nightstand, the pink curtains they picked out together, the tiny glitter lamp still plugged into the wall. Her breath shook. Reggie stayed by the doorway, watching her reactions carefully. "I told you," he said quietly. "I didn't change anything." She brushed her fingers over the edge of the desk, feeling the texture she remembered so well. "Everything is exactly the same," she whispered. "Every detail." Reggie nodded. "Why?" she demanded, turning toward him. He swallowed. "Because this room was hers, and I wanted her to feel like she never lost it." Daisy's frustration rose quickly. "Reggie, she was 6 when we left this house. She's 9 now. Kids grow, kids change. You're giving her a memory instead of reality." "She loved this room," he said. "She still loves it." Daisy exhaled sharply. "You don't know what she loves anymore." The words hit him harder than she expected. He stepped back slightly, jaw tensing, pain flashing across his expression, but he recovered quickly. "I know more than you think," he said. Daisy folded her arms. "Reggie, you kept this room exactly the same for years. Do you hear how strange that sounds?" He looked away. "Maybe it does, but I felt like changing it meant admitting too much." "Admitting what?" Reggie didn't answer right away. His silence spoke louder than any explanation he could have given. Daisy shook her head and scanned the room again. Her frustration grew because the room wasn't wrong. It was thoughtful. It was sentimental. It was the kind of thing Reggie never used to do unless it mattered. And that annoyed her even more. She didn't want to admire him. She didn't want to feel touched. She didn't want anything that complicated. But she needed answers. "Why didn't you tell me she came here before?" she asked firmly, his brows furrowed. "I didn't know. How could you not know?" This is your house. My house is too big, he admitted. Sometimes I don't hear everything that goes on. That's exactly the problem, Daisy snapped. You have a mansion so large that a 9-year-old can wander around unnoticed. You have cameras on every wall and gates taller than streetlights, and somehow none of that stopped her. He held her gaze. You're right. I should have been aware. I should have checked the footage sooner. I should have. Don't let should have, she cut in. You need to show responsibility, not talk about it. His lips pressed together. Daisy paced the room, feeling the pressure in her chest build. Do you understand how unsafe this was? Yes, he said quietly. Do you understand how scared I was? He nodded. I do. Do you understand that she sneaks here because something inside her is unsettled? His face softened at that. I understand that she's hurting, he said. And I want to know why. She's sleeping in a room designed for a 6-year-old, Daisy said. She needed something from here, and you knew nothing about it. Reggie stepped forward slightly, voice steadying. I'm not trying to defend myself. I know I messed up. Good, Daisy muttered. But I want to fix it, he continued. She didn't respond. He took a breath. Daisy, I kept this room exactly the same because I didn't know what else to hold on to. Her eyes flashed at him. This isn't about you holding on to anything. This is about her. I know, he whispered, but she represents everything I lost. Daisy's chest tightened at the honesty in his tone. She hated how easily his words could pierce through her frustration. She hated that even after everything, she could still feel something when he spoke certain truths. But she couldn't let that distract her. She stepped closer, keeping her voice low. Reggie, you can't keep this room as a shrine. You can't hold her in the past because you're afraid of the present. He blinked at that, slowly, like the words needed time to sink in. Daisy took another step back, pulling her composure together. Bianca is 9. She needs support, not nostalgia. Reggie nodded. You're right. Then start acting like a present father, not a memory of one. Her words weren't meant to cut deep. They were meant to wake him up. But the flash in his eyes told her they did both. Before he could respond, something shifted in the room. A soft sound. Daisy turned. Bianca was still asleep. Not during Daisy's raised voice. Not during the tension in the air. She was peacefully asleep, lost in a world that seemed safer than the one Daisy was trying to navigate. Her daughter had slept through everything. That realization hit Daisy hard, familiar in ways Daisy hadn't noticed. Bianca didn't cling to this room because of old memories. She clung to it because it felt like something she lost. Daisy's frustration grew, not toward Reggie directly, but toward the situation, toward herself, toward how long it took her to understand that Bianca was dealing with emotions she hadn't voiced. Daisy gently closed the bedroom door. She couldn't stay in that room another second. I'm leaving, she said, moving past Reggie. He followed her down the hallway but kept his distance. Daisy, don't, she said firmly. Can we at least talk before you go? No, why not? Because right now I'm angry at you, but I'm also angry at myself, she said quietly. And I don't want to say something I can't take back. Reggie looked down, absorbing her words. Daisy reached the stairs. He followed slowly. When will you talk to me? When I'm calmer. When will that be? She paused halfway down the staircase. When I figure out why she feels safer here than with me. The pain that flickered across his face almost made her stop. Not with this much confusion crowding her thoughts. Daisy walked down the rest of the stairs, crossed the massive foyer, and opened the front door. She stepped outside. Reggie didn't call after her. He didn't argue. He didn't chase. And that silence said more than any apology could. She walked to her car, got inside, and closed the door gently. For a moment she sat still, gripping the wheel, breathing hard. Then she drove away, the mansion shrinking in her rearview mirror, like a memory trying to disappear but refusing to fade. Daisy's drive home felt longer than usual. She couldn't shake the image of Bianca sleeping peacefully in that pastel room, the same room she once decorated with so much love, thinking it would be the backdrop of her daughter's entire childhood. Now it felt like a reminder of everything she couldn't fix. When she pulled into her townhouse driveway, she rested her forehead against the steering wheel and breathed deeply. The quiet hum of the engine gave her a moment to gather herself before stepping out. Inside, the house was warm, but carried the stillness of a space waiting for life to return to it. She hung her coat on the hook by the door and walked through the modest living room. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable. the walls adorned with photos she printed at home, not ones taken by professional photographers. She preferred it this way. She had chosen this life, but today, for the first time, she wondered if Bianca felt that choice, if she felt the difference. Bianca emerged from her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy," she asked softly. Daisy forced a gentle smile. "Hey, baby, you hungry?" Bianca shook her head, just tired. Daisy knelt to be at eye level. "You want to rest more?" Okay." Bianca went back to her room without another question. Daisy followed quietly, waiting at the doorway as her daughter crawled onto the bed and curled under her blanket. Daisy reached over, tucked the edges gently, and kissed her cheek. "Sleep well." Bianca smiled faintly before closing her eyes. When Daisy stepped back into the hallway, she let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Her daughter usually talked more, asked more, searched for reassurance, but today she seemed distant, not cold but elsewhere, like part of her was still at the mansion. Daisy returned to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. She stood there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the window, the reflection of a mother trying to stay anchored while everything around her felt tilted. She needed a moment. She needed silence. She needed honesty with herself. But her phone buzzed. She knew who it was before she even looked. "Let me know when you get home." Then she deleted it, typed again, "Bianca is resting." Deleted that too. She tossed the phone onto the counter. She didn't want to talk to him right now. Not when her feelings were tangled between frustration, hurt, and the ache of old memories she'd worked so hard to bury. She poured the water down the sink and went to the couch, sitting with her arms folded, staring blankly ahead. The townhouse suddenly felt too quiet, too small, too different from the spacious, still mansion Bianca seemed drawn to. But Daisy refused to let insecurity settle in. Her home wasn't lacking in love. It wasn't lacking in warmth. It wasn't lacking in stability. She had created a life for her daughter that was real and grounded. Still, she couldn't ignore the contrast. When morning arrived, Daisy felt as if she hadn't slept at all. She dragged herself to the kitchen, blinking away the heaviness tugging at her thoughts. Bianca shuffled in, wearing her purple pajama set, rubbing her eyes. Daisy smiled softly. "Morning, sweetheart," she said. "Morning," Bianca replied in a small voice. The girl sat at the table while Daisy prepared breakfast. She poured cereal into Bianca's favorite bowl, the one with tiny cartoon flowers, and warmed milk on the stove because Bianca preferred it that way. It was their routine, comfortable and familiar. Bianca pushed her curls from her face and took a spoonful. Daisy watched her quietly. "Sleep okay?" Bianca shrugged. "My bed felt different." Daisy's chest tightened. "Different how?" "I don't know," she mumbled. "Just different." Daisy softened her voice. "Do you like your room here?" Bianca nodded. "Yeah," but Daisy could tell it wasn't a complete yes. She forced a smile anyway. "Okay, let's get ready for the day." After breakfast, Bianca settled onto the living room rug again with her blocks. Daisy watched her from the kitchen doorway. Her daughter built two separate structures, a tall tower and a small house, the mansion, and their townhouse. Daisy felt a pinch in her heart. Bianca kept tapping a tiny block between the two structures, sliding it back and forth, moving it from one to the other. It wasn't lost on Daisy. Bianca was choosing, comparing, balancing two worlds she didn't know how to explain. Daisy swallowed her emotion quietly and stepped back just as her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but her eyes drifted to the screen anyway. Did she sleep okay? She ignored it. A minute later, another message. "I'm worried. Please update me." She ignored that too. But then her phone buzzed again, this time with a longer message. "Daisy, I'm not trying to bother you. I'm worried about her. Please talk to me." Daisy sighed heavily and locked her phone without responding. She didn't have the emotional strength to deal with him right now, not when the truth was she wasn't mad at only him. She was mad at herself for not noticing Bianca's shifting behavior sooner. Her eyes drifted back to her daughter, who was now placing a blanket over the smaller house made of blocks, as if trying to protect it. Something in Daisy stirred. Two homes, one child, too much confusion. As she sat on the couch, her mind drifted back years earlier, back to when she and Reggie fell in love. The rhythm had been effortless. Daisy's world had been full of laughter, southern cooking, Sunday gatherings, and warm conversations. Reggie's world was structured, quiet, and built around old traditions and cold expectations. Their relationship was powerful because they brought each other balance, but it was also fragile because neither fully understood how deeply their different backgrounds influenced how they loved. She remembered the first time she brought Reggie to her family's home on the south side. He stood in the doorway, taken aback by the energy. Kids running, cousins laughing, music playing, someone calling from the kitchen for more plates. Reggie had whispered, "This feels alive." But in his world, his family's world, everything came with rules. Silence during dinner, perfect manners, discussions that felt more like presentations than conversations. Daisy never fit neatly into that mold, and she never wanted to. She thought they could bridge the gap. She thought love would fix the disconnect. She thought their worlds could blend. But the truth was, they never learned how to merge their cultures. Their breakup wasn't because they didn't love each other. Daisy blinked away the memory. Maybe she didn't see what Reggie was trying to say under his stiffness. Maybe he didn't know how to express himself in ways that made sense to her. She didn't want to re-examine all of that, but Bianca's actions were forcing her to. Her daughter had connected the dots before either of them did. Daisy rubbed her temples, feeling the pressure of everything building inside her. She needed honesty, from herself and from Reggie. Daisy walked into the kitchen and grabbed her phone again. Reggie had sent one more message, short and simple. "Please don't shut me out again." She closed her eyes, steadying her breath. She typed, "She's fine." Reggie replied instantly, "Can we talk later?" She didn't answer. Instead, she placed the phone face down and returned to the living room. Bianca looked up from her blocks. "Mommy, I made 2 houses." "I see," Daisy said softly. "They look nice. Which one is better?" Bianca asked, tilting her head. Daisy knelt beside her. "They're both good, but which one should the little block live in?" Bianca asked, holding up the tiny piece she had been sliding between the structures. Daisy swallowed slowly. "That depends," she said gently. "Where does the little block feel safe?" Bianca looked at the tiny piece in her hand. Then she placed it between the 2 houses again instead of choosing. Daisy's heart tightened. She leaned over and hugged her daughter from behind. "You don't have to pick right now, sweetheart." Bianca nodded quietly. Later that afternoon, Daisy stood at the sink washing dishes when she felt a tug at her sleeve. "Mommy," Bianca whispered. "Yes?" Daisy kissed her forehead. "Go lay down for a bit." When Daisy tucked her in, the little girl asked softly, "Can you stay until I fall asleep?" Daisy nodded and sat at the edge of the bed. But Bianca didn't fall asleep right away. She kept glancing toward her window, toward the street outside, toward the world that stretched beyond their small townhouse. Daisy stroked her daughter's hand. "You're safe here, baby." "I know," Bianca whispered, but it didn't sound like enough. After Bianca finally drifted off, Daisy stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, her breath unsteady. She could feel it. Somewhere between frustration and confusion, something bigger was forming, something she couldn't articulate yet, something that felt like the beginning of a confrontation she wasn't emotionally ready for. Her world and Reggie's were colliding again, and she knew she couldn't avoid that collision much longer. The rest of the day drifted by slowly, like the hours themselves were hesitant to move forward. Daisy tried to keep her mind busy, folding laundry, organizing the kitchen drawers, wiping down counters that didn't need cleaning, but nothing slowed the restless thoughts circling her mind. She checked on Bianca more than usual, quietly peeking into her room every hour. Each time, she found her daughter awake but subdued, sitting cross-legged on her bed, hugging her favorite stuffed toy, or staring at the window like she was waiting for something. Daisy didn't know whether to be concerned or heartbroken. By evening, the sky outside darkened into a deep Chicago blue. The streetlights flickered on. The townhouse settled into its nighttime sounds, faint humming from the refrigerator, the occasional car rumbling in the distance, the light creak of wood as the building adjusted to the cold. Daisy called Bianca for dinner. "Come eat, sweetheart." Bianca walked into the kitchen slowly, her curls catching the soft light. She sat down at the table without saying much. Daisy placed a plate in front of her, chicken, rice, and broccoli, all things Bianca usually enjoyed. Tonight she barely touched it. "You okay, baby?" Daisy asked, trying to keep her voice soft. Bianca muttered, "I'm not hungry, but you need to eat." Bianca took one small bite, chewed slowly, then set her fork down. Daisy's chest tightened. She didn't want to push too hard. Not tonight. Not when everything felt delicate. It's all right, Daisy finally said. You can stop if you want. Bianca nodded and slid off the chair, heading toward the living room. She climbed onto the couch and curled into a corner with her blanket. Daisy watched her from the doorway, her own hands gripping the edge of the counter. Something was wrong. Something was pulling her daughter in a direction she didn't understand yet. She was about to walk over when she heard the faint sound, barely audible, of a notification vibrating on her phone. She didn't think much of it at first, but then it vibrated again, and again, and again. Daisy frowned and walked to the counter, picking up her phone. Her blood ran cold. Security alert. Reggie's residence security alert. Reggie's residence security alert. Reggie's residence. Her heart stopped. No, she whispered. She tapped the first alert. The footage loaded instantly. Daisy's breath hitched. There on the corner of the screen, bundled in a small jacket, was Bianca, stepping quietly along the sidewalk toward the gate of Reggie's mansion. "Bianca!" Daisy gasped, spinning toward the living room, but the couch was empty. The blanket still held the shape of her small body. The front door was cracked open by an inch. Daisy's heart slammed against her ribs. She grabbed her keys, hands shaking, and bolted out the door, her pulse hammering with panic. She didn't even lock the townhouse behind her. She sprinted to the car, threw the door open, and started the engine. Her chest tightened painfully as she sped down the street. "She did it again," Daisy whispered. "My baby did it again." She merged onto the main road, her foot pressing harder on the gas. She tried to breathe, but her breaths came short and sharp. The night blurred past her windows. Every street light felt too far apart. Every red light felt like a punishment. How did she get out so fast? Daisy muttered. How did she leave without me hearing anything? What is pulling her there so strongly? The closer she got to Reggie's neighborhood, the more anger began rising inside her. Anger at herself, anger at Reggie, anger at the entire situation piling on top of her like a weight she couldn't carry. When she reached the private road leading to the mansion, her hands tightened around the wheel. The gate was already open. She drove through and braked hard in front of the steps. She jumped out of the car and ran toward the entrance. Before she could pound on the door, it opened. Reggie stood there barefoot, eyes wide, breathing hard, as if he had just rushed downstairs himself. "She's here," he said immediately. "I didn't know. I swear, Daisy, I didn't know." Daisy pushed past him. "Where is she?" "In her room." Daisy stormed up the staircase, fury and fear twisting together inside her. She reached Bianca's room and flung the door open. The same small figure curled in the same bed, blanket pulled to her chest, her breathing steady, her expression soft and calm. Bianca looked like she had been asleep for hours, not minutes, but that was impossible. Daisy walked over and sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her daughter, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, feeling her heart twist with 1,000 emotions she couldn't put into words. Reggie appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame as though the sight exhausted him too. "She came in fast," he said quietly. "I barely heard her." Daisy didn't look at him. How did she get in? She knew the gate code. She shouldn't know the gate code, Daisy said sharply. She shouldn't know anything about this property. Reggie rubbed the back of his neck, looking genuinely shaken. "Daisy, I'm not lying to you. I didn't teach her any of this." Daisy turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. "So, you're telling me our 9-year-old child learned 2 different passcodes on her own, gained access to a mansion and a gate, twice, without anyone's help?" Reggie nodded. "I don't know how she figured it out, but she did." Daisy stood up abruptly, moving away from the bed to breathe. "Reggie, this isn't normal. Kids Bianca's age don't slip out unnoticed, learn codes, and walk into massive houses alone." "I know." "No," she snapped. "You keep saying you know, but you don't act like it." Reggie opened his mouth to speak, but Daisy lifted a hand to stop him. "You're telling me she came all the way here, again, and you had no idea until your cameras alerted you?" "Daisy, I don't monitor the cameras every second." "That's the problem," she said. "You don't pay attention unless the system forces you to." He closed his eyes briefly, frustration mixing with guilt. "I'm not perfect." "No one is," Daisy said. "But she's 9. She's 9, Reggie. She shouldn't be able to slip through your life this easily." He swallowed hard. "You think I don't care? I think you don't see what's right in front of you." Silence filled the space, not the cold, distant silence they used to have during the worst parts of their relationship. This silence was heavier, like both of them carried something they weren't ready to admit yet. Daisy paced the room, her anger simmering under the surface. She ran a hand through her hair. "Why is she coming here?" she murmured under her breath, more to herself than to him. "Why does she keep choosing this place?" Reggie stepped closer. "I don't know, but I want to understand." Daisy glared at him. "You keep saying that because it's the truth." She shook her head. "Reggie, something is going on with her. Something she's hiding. Something we're missing." Reggie lowered his voice. "You think she's scared?" "I think she's overwhelmed," Daisy said. "I think she's trying to tell us something the only way she knows how." Reggie nodded slowly. "I've been feeling that too." Daisy crossed her arms tightly, frustration pulsing through her veins. "She didn't just wander. She left my house deliberately, quietly, quickly. That means she planned it." Reggie's expression shifted, the beginnings of realization flickering across his face. "You think she planned last night too?" "I don't think," Daisy said. "I know." Reggie stared at the floor for a moment. When he looked up, his eyes held something different, something unsettled. "Daisy," he said softly, "there's something else I didn't tell you." Her stomach tightened. "What?" He hesitated. "Last night, before you got here, when I went to check the cameras, it wasn't the first time the system caught movement near the gate." Daisy blinked. "What do you mean?" "I thought it was a cat," he said, "or maybe a shadow." I ignored it. Daisy took a step toward him. "When was this?" "2 nights ago." Her jaw tightened. "So she's been doing this even longer than we thought." Reggie nodded slowly. Daisy felt the room tilt for a moment. She had thought things were already complicated. She hadn't realized they were worse. She turned her back, needing space to breathe. "We should have caught this sooner." "I know," Reggie said. Daisy spun around and faced him fully. "No, we should have caught this the moment she started acting different. The moment she started withdrawing. The moment she started seeing this place as an escape." Reggie swallowed hard. "What do we do now?" Daisy exhaled shakily. She didn't have all the answers. She barely had her own emotions under control. But one thing was clear. Something was hiding beneath all of this. Something connected to Bianca. Something connected to their past. Something connected to what they both lost. She stepped closer to the bed, looking at Bianca's peaceful face. Then she whispered the question out loud for the first time. "What are you trying to tell us, baby?" Reggie stood beside her, unsure, nervous, and visibly shaken. Daisy tightened her jaw and turned to him. "I want the truth," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'll tell you everything," he said quietly. "Tonight." Daisy's eyes narrowed. Good, because everything was about to crack open. The room felt smaller than it ever had. Daisy stood near the foot of Bianca's bed, staring at her daughter's peaceful face while the weight of the night pressed against her chest. The soft rise and fall of Bianca's breathing should have brought her comfort, but instead, it made her feel more unsettled. Reggie stood a few feet away, leaning against the wall like he was trying to blend into it. His arms hung at his sides, fingers flexing in a way that told Daisy he was holding something in, something he had never said, something he didn't want to say. But tonight, she wasn't leaving without answers. Daisy turned from the bed and leveled her eyes on him. "You said you'd tell me everything," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't angry, just firm, tired, demanding truth instead of excuses. Reggie straightened. "I will then talk." He opened his mouth, paused, closed it again. His tongue pressed to the inside of his cheek as he looked toward the floor, a familiar sign he was trying to gather words he wasn't used to speaking. Daisy folded her arms. "Reggie, I'm not doing this back and forth. Start talking." He took a slow breath, lifted his eyes, and nodded. "Okay." But when he tried to speak, the words didn't come easily. "It's not simple," he said. "I don't need simple," she responded. "I need honesty." Another pause, another breath. Reggie rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she hadn't seen in years. It used to appear whenever he felt caught between emotion and logic, between wanting to express something and not knowing how. "Daisy," his voice was lower now. "I should have told you a long time ago." Her stomach tightened. Told me what? He swallowed hard. The breakup, it wasn't what you thought. A cold stillness washed over Daisy. She didn't move, didn't blink. What do you mean? Reggie pushed off the wall and took a small step toward her, his movements careful, like approaching a fragile memory. You think I fell out of love, he said. You think I walked away? Daisy's jaw clenched. You did walk away. Reggie shook his head, a quiet frustration in his expression, but not at her. At himself. No, he said. I didn't. Daisy froze. Her mind tried to make sense of the words, but they felt impossible to process. Reggie ran a hand across his face. I never let you go. The sentence hung in the room like a confession he had been holding for years. Daisy's heart stumbled. What? She whispered. Reggie's voice softened, trembling at the edges. I never let you go, he repeated. Not emotionally, not mentally, not for a second. Daisy stared at him, stunned. Her hands fell to her sides, her breath shortening. She wasn't prepared for this. She wasn't prepared for him to say something that cut through her anger. So quickly, she couldn't even hide her reaction. She swallowed. Reggie, don't say things like that, unless you mean them. I mean every word, he said, eyes locked on hers. You think I wanted this distance? You think I wanted our family to fall apart? Daisy felt her pulse in her ears. You left. You told me it wasn't working. You said you couldn't do it anymore. His face tightened. I said what I thought would protect you. Protect me from what? She demanded. Reggie looked away, his jaw flexing. He walked a few steps toward the window, then back again, like the truth was trapped inside him, fighting its way out. Daisy stepped closer, her brows low and intense. Reggie, say it. He stopped pacing. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. When everything started falling apart, he said slowly, I wasn't the one who wanted you gone. Daisy blinked. Then who did? He opened his mouth, but the word wouldn't leave. His eyes glistened with a frustration she had never seen in him. Not anger, but something deeper. Pain. Conflict. Daisy's voice softened, but only barely. Reggie, you're holding something back. He looked at her, straight into her. His eyes, once guarded, now looked raw. Unprotected. Human. I am, he admitted. Then tell me. Reggie inhaled sharply and clenched his fists at his sides. It wasn't me, he whispered. I didn't push you away. Daisy's heart pounded. Then who? She pressed. His voice nearly cracked. Someone made you leave. Daisy felt her knees weaken slightly. She reached out and steadied herself on the edge of the dresser. The air in the room shifted, thick, heavy, tense. What are you talking about? She whispered. Reggie raked his fingers through his hair, taking another shaky breath. I tried to fix things. I tried to fight for us. I tried to keep our family together. But every time I got close, something stopped me. What stopped you? Reggie exhaled slowly. The truth is, I didn't lose you because of anything you did, or anything I felt. I lost you because someone else wanted you gone. Daisy felt her stomach twist. Who? Reggie looked at the floor again. That's the part I'm scared to say, he whispered. Daisy's heartbeat quickened. Reggie. His eyes lifted to meet hers, filled with something between regret and unresolved pain. I wasn't strong enough to protect us, he said quietly. The sentence cracked something open inside Daisy. She felt her breath shake, not because she was angry, but because her world was beginning to shift beneath her feet. She had come here expecting responsibility, excuses, maybe even apologies. But she didn't expect this. She didn't expect the man she once loved to admit he never wanted her gone. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Daisy found her voice again. Why didn't you tell me this before? Reggie shook his head. Because I didn't know how. That's not an excuse. I know. You let me believe I wasn't enough. Reggie flinched, pain flickering across his face. You were always enough. Daisy felt the air leave her lungs. She stepped backward instinctively, overwhelmed. Reggie tried to move toward her, but she lifted a hand, not in anger, just in an instinctive need for space. Don't, she whispered. He stopped immediately. Daisy looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. I spent years thinking you stopped loving me. Years thinking I wasn't what you needed. Years thinking I failed. You didn't fail, Reggie said. I did. Daisy shook her head, overwhelmed. Why are you telling me this now? His voice cracked openly. Because our daughter is running to this house for a reason, and I think that reason is tied to what happened between us. She feels something we never dealt with, something I never said. Daisy's breath trembled again. Reggie, she whispered. He wiped his palms against his jeans, the movement trembling. I'm ready to tell you everything, he said. But once I do, you'll see me differently. Daisy swallowed hard. Differently how? Reggie's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with old wounds. Her voice barely came out. Who? Reggie looked at her with an expression she had never seen from him, one that made the room feel heavier. I'll tell you, he whispered, but not while she's sleeping next to us. His voice wasn't evasive, it was protective. Daisy looked back at Bianca, curled in that familiar bed, unaware of the emotional storm swirling above her. Then Daisy looked back at Reggie. Her voice was quiet, but firm. Fine, we go downstairs. Reggie nodded and stepped aside, letting her lead the way. They walked quietly to the hallway, their footsteps slow, the tension between them shifting from anger to something far more vulnerable. Daisy didn't know what truth waited for her downstairs, but she knew one thing for certain. Everything she believed about their breakup was about to change, and she wasn't sure her heart was ready for it. They walked down the stairs slowly, Daisy leading, Reggie a few steps behind. The air between them had changed, no longer sharp with anger, but heavy with the weight of what hadn't been said for years. At the bottom of the steps, Daisy stopped near the living room entrance. She glanced toward the front door, as if making sure no one else could hear, though she knew no one else was in the mansion. Still, something about tonight made everything feel exposed. Reggie motioned toward the sitting area. Let's talk here. Daisy nodded stiffly and moved toward the large couch. She sat at the far end, leaving plenty of space. Reggie sat opposite her, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped tightly, as if holding himself together physically was the only way he could speak without falling apart. Seconds stretched quietly between them. Finally, Daisy broke the silence. You said someone made me leave, she said, voice steady despite the storm building inside her. Who? Reggie stared at the floor. Before I tell you, I want you to understand something. Daisy's eyes narrowed. You've had years to say this. Don't soften it now. Reggie inhaled sharply and lifted his head. Fine. His gaze held hers directly. It was my mother. Daisy didn't move. Her expression didn't shift, but her body reacted. Her shoulders stiffened, her breath caught for a fraction of a second, her heart thudded once hard. She spoke softly. Your mother? Reggie nodded slowly. Yes. Daisy blinked once and the sting in her chest deepened. She had always known his mother didn't care for her. She knew the woman had opinions, quiet judgments expressed through cold stares and clipped comments. But forcing Daisy out? Manipulating their breakup? That was a different level of cruelty. Daisy leaned back slightly, crossing her arms, not defensive, but bracing herself. Explain? Reggie exhaled, and the sound carried years of regret. When things got difficult between us, he started. I went to her for advice. Daisy raised a brow. Why would you do that? Because, he said quietly, I grew up believing she always knew what was best. She never accepted me, Daisy said. Reggie nodded. I know that now. Did you know it then? His silence answered for him. Daisy looked away briefly, not in anger but in realization that the rejection she felt wasn't imagined. It had been real, deep, targeted. Reggie continued, gripping his hands tighter. When I told her we were arguing more, she didn't try to help. She didn't ask what you felt. She didn't ask what I needed to work through. She just stepped in. How? Daisy pressed. Reggie swallowed hard. She told me you were unhappy. Daisy blinked. I was frustrated, yes, but I wasn't unhappy with us. She said you told her you were done. Daisy's voice dropped. I never said that. I know, Reggie said quickly, I know you didn't, but she convinced me you had. She said you visited her, talked to her, confided in her. Daisy shook her head slowly, disbelief creeping into her voice. I barely had a full conversation with that woman. I know, Reggie said again, guilt trembling in his tone. I should have questioned it. I should have known. Daisy leaned forward, so she lied, boldly. Reggie nodded. Yes. Daisy's hands curled into fists against her thighs. The audacity left her speechless for a moment. And you believed her, she said finally, voice quiet but cutting. I did, Reggie admitted, eyes dropping again. I let her words carry more weight than yours. Daisy's chest tightened. Reggie's childhood wasn't built on warmth. His mother raised him with expectations instead of affection, discipline instead of compassion. Daisy had always known he struggled to see through her manipulation, but knowing it didn't make the truth easier to swallow. What else did she do? Daisy asked. Reggie looked pained as he answered. She changed messages. Daisy's whole body tensed. What do you mean changed messages? She had access to my email and phone back then, he said. I didn't think anything of it. My family always had someone monitoring devices for security, but she used it to intercept your messages. Daisy's breath hitched. Intercept? She deleted some, reworded others, made it look like you were pulling away, like you didn't care. Daisy's vision blurred with furious disbelief. So while I was pouring my heart out to you, she said, her voice trembling slightly, you never saw most of it? Reggie shook his head, shame deep in his eyes. I didn't. And the dry responses I got? Daisy whispered. The ones that made me feel like you didn't want me anymore? Reggie nodded, guilt written across his features. They weren't mine. She sent them. Daisy's hand flew to her chest, not in dramatics, but because the pain hit so hard it felt physical. Her heart thudded in a rhythm that didn't feel steady at all. For years she replayed those cold messages. For years she believed Reggie stopped caring. For years she thought she wasn't enough. And now, she looked at him, voice softer but sharper than before. So everything fell apart not because we failed, but because she interfered. Reggie's voice cracked. Yes. Daisy shook her head again, this time with tears gathering behind her eyes, not from sadness but from shock and betrayal. Betrayal she didn't expect to feel so deeply because she thought she had moved past this, but hearing it from Reggie, the truth she never knew, reopened wounds she didn't even realize were still raw. And you didn't question any of it, she said, her tone now trembling between anger and heartbreak. Reggie looked shattered. I was weak. I believed her. You believed a woman who despised me over the woman you claimed to love, Daisy said. Reggie's eyes glistened. I know. Daisy pressed her lips together tightly, trying to control the surge of emotion rising inside her. But it was too much. She stood. Reggie looked up at her, panic flickering in his gaze. Daisy, why didn't you tell me sooner? She whispered. Why let me go all these years believing I wasn't enough? Believing you stopped wanting me? Believing I failed you? Reggie stood too, his voice breaking, because I was ashamed, because I didn't know how to face what I let happen, because every time I looked at you I saw the pain I caused. You could have fixed it, Daisy said. You could have come to me, you could have said something. I tried, Reggie said, frustrated with himself. Every time I got close to reaching out, I froze. I didn't think I deserved to ask for anything after what she did and what I didn't stop. A heavy silence filled the room. Daisy's throat tightened. All the anger she carried, all the confusion, all the resentment, it didn't disappear, but it cracked under the weight of the truth. She'd never been the problem. She'd never been the reason Reggie drifted away. She had never been unworthy of love. It had been manipulation, cold interference, cruel control, and the worst part, she felt this truth shaking her world apart, not because it hurt, but because it made everything she believed about their breakup collapse in an instant. You should have protected us, Daisy whispered. Reggie's voice trembled openly. I know, and I hate myself for failing. Daisy turned away, unable to look at him. She walked toward the far end of the room and pressed her hand against the wall for support. The memories hit her hard. The unanswered messages, the cold tone, the sudden distance, the loneliness, the heartbreak, the confusion, the feeling of losing someone she loved without understanding why. All of it had been built on lies. Reggie approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. Daisy, I'm sorry. She shook her head without turning around. I need a minute. He nodded, swallowing. Take all the time you need. But even from across the room, she could feel the remorse radiating off him. She could feel the sincerity in his voice, a sincerity she had waited years to hear without ever expecting it to come. She turned back to him slowly, tears in her eyes, not falling, just held there by shock. "I need air," she whispered. Reggie stepped back instinctively, giving her space. "I'll walk you out." Daisy didn't argue. She walked toward the front door, her steps slow and unsteady. Reggie followed behind her silently. When she reached the door, she stopped and gripped the handle. Her throat felt tight when she spoke again. "I'm not ready to talk more tonight." Reggie nodded, voice soft. "I understand." Daisy opened the door but paused, her back still turned to him. "I wasn't the problem," she said quietly, almost to herself. Reggie's voice cracked as he answered. "You never were." That sentence nearly broke her. Without turning around, she stepped outside into the cold night air and closed the door behind her. The truth had finally surfaced, and it left her shaken in ways she wasn't prepared for. She walked to her car with trembling hands, the reality of everything settling on her shoulders. Nothing about their breakup had been what she thought. Nothing about their past had been real in the way she remembered it. She had no idea what to do next. All she knew was that Bianca, somehow, felt all of this long before either parent understood it. And Daisy was finally ready to see that truth. The drive back to her townhouse felt heavier than any trip Daisy had taken in years. The city lights blurred through her windshield as she navigated the quiet Chicago streets, every corner pressing memories against her chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't frustration. It wasn't even confusion. It was a truth too heavy to process. Reggie's mother had interfered. Reggie had believed her. Her messages had been twisted, her voice erased, her pain unseen. And now Daisy had to face the haunting realization that her entire heartbreak, every sleepless night, every tear she buried, every wound she carried, was built on a lie she never saw coming. She turned into her neighborhood, parked her car in her driveway, and sat still for a moment. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale. Her eyes stared at the dashboard, but she wasn't seeing anything in front of her. Her mind kept replaying Reggie's words. "I never let you go." She changed messages. "You were never the problem." Daisy leaned back in her seat, exhaling shakily. She closed her eyes and the weight of the truth settled deeper into her bones. She finally opened her door, stepped into the cold air, and walked inside her townhouse silently. The familiar scent of lavender from the plug-in diffuser greeted her, normally calming but tonight unable to soothe anything. She hung her coat on the hook and looked toward the hallway where Bianca slept. A part of her wanted to go into her daughter's room immediately, hold her, breathe her in, reassure herself that in a world full of manipulation, Bianca was still untouched by that darkness. But Daisy wasn't ready, not yet. She needed to think. She needed space. She needed to understand what she felt before she walked into her daughter's room carrying the emotional hurricane inside her. Daisy moved to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. She didn't drink it. She just held it. The townhouse was silent. Too silent. She placed the glass down and walked to the living room, sinking into the couch slowly as though her body needed time to adjust to the reality she was about to confront. She stared at the wall across from her. Then she whispered to herself, what was real? The question echoed through the room. For the first time, she allowed herself to revisit the memories she had locked away, memories she had always believed were signs of her own inadequacy, signs that Reggie had lost interest, signs she had somehow failed. But tonight, she needed to see those moments again with new eyes. She unlocked her phone and scrolled slowly through old messages, some she had reread hundreds of times, some that had broken her heart so sharply she thought she'd never recover. She opened one, a dry line from Reggie that had once crushed her. "Do whatever you want. I'm tired." She used to think that message meant he was done, that he didn't care, that he was pulling away. But now, reading it again, something felt off. The tone didn't sound like him. It sounded mechanical, abrupt, hollow, and wrong. She switched to another message. "Maybe you should go." Her eyes lingered on the words. They used to feel like a knife. But now, the punctuation, the tone, the rhythm, it didn't match Reggie's voice. Not at all. She scrolled deeper. She found one of her own messages. "We need to talk. I want to fix this." She remembered sending that message after crying in the shower late at night, feeling her heart crumble. There had never been a response. Daisy's throat tightened. She whispered to herself. He never saw it. She opened more of her outgoing messages, one after another. No responses. None. Daisy felt her heart sink, because now she knew. Reggie never ignored her. He never pushed her away. He never chose silence. He never received them. Her eyes blurred with tears she had held back for years. She set the phone down and covered her mouth with her hand, letting the truth wash over her. Her heartbreak had been built on deception. Her trust had been destroyed by someone who wanted control. Her family had been torn apart before it was given a chance to survive. Her breath trembled. Daisy stood abruptly, unable to sit anymore. She paced through the living room, her mind struggling to keep up with the waves of realization crashing through her. She thought back to moments that never made sense. Reggie's sudden shift in tone, the stiffness that appeared overnight, the way he pulled away emotionally without any build-up, the coldness that replaced compassion so fast it left her dizzy. She remembered trying to talk to him and feeling like he wasn't even seeing her, like his love had vanished in an instant. But now she knew that wasn't true. His love had been buried under someone else's manipulation. Her back pressed against the wall as she exhaled slowly, grounding herself. "Everything I believed," she whispered, "was wrong." She walked toward the bookshelf, her fingertips grazing the photo frame sitting on the top shelf, the one she always considered off limits to her emotions. It held a picture of her, Reggie, and Bianca at Navy Pier. Bianca had cotton candy smeared on her cheek. Daisy had her arms around both of them. Reggie was smiling, a real smile, the kind he rarely allowed in photos. Daisy stared at the picture for a long time. Then she whispered, "We were happy." Her voice cracked on the last word. She placed the frame back gently and sat down on the couch again, rubbing her hands together, processing, unraveling, understanding. She remembered the last few weeks before the breakup, the tension, the silent dinners, the confusion, the way Reggie had become harder to reach emotionally. She had blamed herself. But now, seeing the truth clearly, she saw the pattern she once missed. It was interference. It wasn't disinterest. It was sabotage. It wasn't a man falling out of love. It was a family being pulled apart by someone who never wanted Daisy there in the first place. She felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she blinked the tears back. She wasn't crying, not tonight. She was thinking, understanding, seeing everything with clarity she had never been given before. Daisy leaned forward and rested her elbows on her knees, and then the final realization hit her square in the chest. This wasn't a secret Reggie had uncovered yesterday. This was something he had known for a while, something he had struggled with, something he carried alone, and somehow Bianca sensed all of it. Daisy lifted her head slowly. Children understand heartache even when they don't know how to name it. She was choosing a space where both her parents' energy lived, where she felt a memory of unity she didn't have the words for, where she believed they could face truth together. Daisy covered her mouth as the realization settled deep and painful. Bianca wasn't trying to escape. She was trying to repair. Daisy's stomach twisted with a new clarity, one she couldn't ignore. Bianca knew something her parents didn't, and she had known it before either of them understood their own pain. Daisy stood again and walked to the hallway, stopping outside her daughter's door. She didn't open it. She just stood there, hand on the doorknob, feeling her heart ache with new understanding. She rested her forehead against the door. Now she knew the truth. Her daughter had been trying to bring them back to the source of the break because she felt the fractures before they did. Daisy exhaled shakily, stepping back. She had a new mission now, not anger, not blame, not punishment, because Bianca held the missing piece to the past, and Daisy was ready, finally, to listen. The morning light pushed gently through the thin curtains of Bianca's room, casting a soft glow over the edges of her bed. Daisy stood just outside the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. With the kind of stillness only deep reflection creates, she had barely rested herself. The truth from last night still clung to her skin, quiet, heavy, and impossible to ignore. Her mind had replayed Reggie's confession more times than she could count, every piece of it, Every word, every moment she realized her heartbreak had been built on deception, not incompatibility. But this morning wasn't about her, not until she understood what Bianca felt, what Bianca knew. Daisy stepped quietly into the room and lowered herself to the edge of her daughter's bed. Bianca stirred, turned slightly, then blinked awake. "Mommy?" she whispered, voice groggy. Daisy brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. "Good morning, sweetheart." Bianca rubbed her eyes, then scooted up slowly against her pillows. Daisy could see it, that moment of hesitation in Bianca's gaze, the silent checking to see if everything was okay. Daisy softened her voice. "Baby, Mommy wants to talk to you." Bianca's small hands tightened around her blanket. "Am I in trouble?" she asked quietly. The question pierced Daisy straight through the chest. "No," Daisy said immediately. "You're not in trouble at all." Bianca's shoulders relaxed just a little, but the nervous look didn't disappear. Daisy took a slow breath, careful not to overwhelm her. "I want to understand something," Daisy continued, "and I want you to tell me honestly. I won't get mad, I promise." Bianca gnawed lightly at her bottom lip, another sign she was caring more than a child her age should. Daisy tucked her hair behind her ear. "Sweetheart, why do you keep sneaking out to Daddy's house?" Bianca froze. Her eyes darted to her pillow, then to her hands, then back to Daisy, never staying in one place long. Daisy waited, giving her space to find her words. Finally, Bianca whispered, "I don't know." Daisy smiled gently. "Try, baby, you're safe. Just tell me. Whatever you feel." Bianca stared at her hands for a long moment. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of careful thinking, the kind of internal sorting children do when they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. Then, in a tiny voice, she said, I just wanted to be there." Daisy leaned a little closer. "Why?" Bianca's eyes glistened. Not crying, just full. A sign the truth was sitting right behind them, waiting to be pushed out. I don't want you and Daddy to be mad anymore." She reached out and held Bianca's hand gently. "What makes you think we're mad, baby?" Bianca hesitated again. "Because every time I ask about Daddy, you get quiet, and every time Daddy talks about you, he gets sad." Daisy blinked slowly. This wasn't defiance. This wasn't adventure. This was a little girl trying to fix something that wasn't her fault. Bianca wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "I don't like when people are sad," she whispered. "Especially you." Daisy felt tears push behind her eyes, but she held them back. This moment wasn't for her emotions. It was for Bianca's truth. "Baby," Daisy said softly, squeezing her hand, "you never have to fix grown-up problems. That's not your job." "I know," Bianca murmured, but the way she said it, soft, hesitant, unsure, told Daisy she didn't know it all. Daisy moved closer and lifted Bianca's chin gently. "You don't ever have to carry things that heavy. That's what parents are for." Bianca's voice cracked. "But you and Daddy don't talk, and when people don't talk, they get more sad." Daisy inhaled sharply. This wasn't just a child noticing tension. This was a child interpreting silence. Bianca continued, her small fingers twisting in her blanket. "Sometimes when I was at Daddy's house before, when I used to live there, you both laughed, a lot, and we had pancakes on Sundays, and Daddy tried to flip them even though he was bad at it." A tiny smile tugged at Bianca's lips. Daisy swallowed hard. "Yes, baby, I remember. And at the old house, you and Daddy talked every night," Bianca said. "Even when you were tired." Daisy lowered her head for a moment, letting the memory settle. Bianca looked at her again, voice quieter. "But now, you have your house, and Daddy has his house, and I only see you together when you hand me off." Daisy felt that sentence like a punch to her heart. Bianca looked down at her hands again. "And it doesn't feel like family." Those words broke something inside Daisy, something she didn't know still existed. She placed her hand over her daughter's. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" Bianca shrugged slightly. "I didn't want you to be sad. You always look tired when you come home from work, and I didn't want to make you cry." Daisy's chest tightened painfully. She wiped a stray tear from her cheek and smiled gently. "Baby, you could never make me cry in a bad way. Everything you say matters to me. Everything." Bianca shifted anxiously, her small voice cracking. I wanted things to be like before. Daisy exhaled shakily, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. Like before what? Bianca froze again. Her eyes darted away. She hesitated, but Daisy didn't push. She let Bianca sit with her feelings. Finally, Bianca whispered, "Like before you stopped talking to Daddy." Daisy's breath hitched. Bianca continued softly, "I thought if I went to Daddy's house a lot, maybe you two would see each other again. And maybe you would talk again. And maybe you'd remember we were a family." The words hung in the air with the weight of a child's quiet heartbreak. Daisy covered her mouth, stunned, not by her daughter's longing, but by her understanding. Bianca hadn't been sneaking out for comfort. She'd been sneaking out for connection. Bianca melted into her embrace, her tiny hands gripping Daisy's shirt. Daisy stroked her back gently, letting her hold on as tightly as she needed. "I didn't want you to be mad at each other anymore," Bianca whispered against her chest. "I thought if I slept in my old room, maybe you'd talk." Daisy closed her eyes, finally letting a few tears slip through, not from sadness, but from the ache of a truth she was finally ready to face. "Sweetheart," Daisy whispered, "thank you for telling me. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being brave." Bianca sniffled softly. "I'm not brave." Daisy smiled into her hair. "Yes, you are. Very brave." Bianca looked up, eyes shining. "So, are you mad at me?" "No, baby, never," Daisy said firmly. "I'm proud of you for telling me." Bianca relaxed a little in her arms. Daisy pulled back enough to look her daughter in the eyes. "Mommy didn't know you were hurting this much, and I'm so sorry you felt like you had to fix things alone." Bianca looked at her nervously. "Are you mad at Daddy?" Daisy shook her head slowly. "No, not right now. I'm trying to understand things." Bianca tilted her head. "Will you talk to him?" Daisy hesitated. Not because she didn't know the answer, she did. "Yes," Daisy said finally. "I will." Bianca's face brightened. Not a huge smile, but the kind of soft relief a child feels when something heavy slips off their shoulders. "Really?" she asked. "Yes, baby," Daisy whispered. "Really?" Bianca hugged her again, tight, emotional, grateful. Daisy held her close, feeling something inside her shift. Not break, not crumble, shift. Because for the first time, she understood why everything was unfolding the way it was. Bianca wasn't sneaking out for comfort. She wasn't sneaking out for adventure. She wasn't sneaking out because she preferred the mansion. She was sneaking out for hope. Hope her parents didn't realize they still had. Daisy kissed her daughter's forehead. "Thank you for telling me the truth, sweetheart." Bianca nodded sleepily. "I love you, Mommy. I love you too," Daisy whispered, her voice full and quiet. "More than you know." Bianca rested her head on Daisy's shoulder. "Mommy?" Those 6 words pierced deeper than any confession Reggie had made. She hugged Bianca tightly again. "Okay, baby. Okay." And in that moment, Daisy made a silent promise. Daisy lay beside Bianca for several minutes after their conversation, her daughter's small frame curled into her side, breathing softly. The warmth of the moment clung to Daisy's chest long after Bianca drifted into a gentle sleep, but Daisy couldn't close her own eyes, not after what she'd heard. Now she finally understood the emotional mission her daughter had been quietly carrying for months. Bianca wasn't running away, she was reaching out, trying to pull her family back into a space where everything once felt whole. Daisy tilted her head slightly and studied Bianca's peaceful expression, her lashes resting softly against her cheeks, her tiny hands still gripping Daisy's shirt even in sleep. It made her heart ache with both love and guilt. She gently loosened Bianca's fingers, stood from the bed quietly, and covered her daughter with a blanket. She paused at the doorway, staring for a long moment before stepping out. Her legs felt heavier than normal as she walked into the living room. She lowered herself onto the couch and rubbed her palms against her thighs, letting the silence settle around her. Everything inside her felt like a long exhale that her body wasn't ready for. She needed time, she needed understanding, but she knew she wouldn't get either until she finished the conversation Bianca had begun. After almost half an hour, she heard light footfalls, soft, hesitant. "Mommy?" Bianca's voice floated down the hallway. Daisy sat up quickly. "Yes, sweetheart." Bianca rubbed her eyes as she walked toward the couch. "I couldn't sleep. My heart feels funny." Daisy reached for her immediately, lifting her into her lap. "Tell me how it feels." Bianca leaned against her. "Like it's thinking too much." Daisy smiled gently. "I know that feeling." Bianca looked up. "Can I tell you something else?" That sentence carried weight, more than a child her age should have to hold. Daisy kissed her forehead. "Of course, you can tell me anything." Bianca fiddled with the sleeve of her pajama top, her voice soft and shaky. "I didn't sneak out because I didn't like being here." Daisy's chest tightened. "I know, baby." "No," Bianca insisted, sitting up straighter. "Mommy, listen. I need you to hear it right." Daisy swallowed and nodded. "I'm listening." Bianca's hands trembled as she tried to find her words. I went back because it felt like home was broken." Daisy's breath caught. She opened her mouth, but Bianca continued faster, like she needed to speak before courage ran out. "I didn't know how to fix it," she whispered. "But I remember something." "What do you remember?" Daisy asked gently. Bianca's lips pressed together, eyes filling again. "The last night before you left." Daisy froze. Bianca had been so young. How could she remember anything? Daisy had always assumed she didn't understand what was happening back then. But children absorb truth even when adults try to hide it. "What do you remember, baby?" Daisy asked softly. Daisy's heart stumbled. "What?" "I woke up because I heard voices," Bianca said, leaning into Daisy's chest. "You were in your room packing, and Daddy, he was sitting on the stairs with his head down." Daisy stared into her daughter's small face, stunned. "I thought he was hurt," Bianca said. "But when I looked closer, he was crying." Daisy covered her mouth. She had never known. She had never seen it. "And then," Bianca continued quietly, "I saw him reach for his phone, but he dropped it. I didn't know what that meant." Daisy's throat tightened. Her heart felt too big, too full, too shattered all at once. "Baby," Daisy whispered. Bianca continued, her voice fragile. "When you picked me up from school the next day, I asked you where Daddy was, and you said we were going to our new house. But you were sad, and he was sad, and I didn't know what to do." Tears slipped silently down Daisy's cheeks. Bianca looked up at her again. "Mommy, grown-ups don't always say the truth with words. Sometimes they say it with their faces, and I could see his face, and yours." Daisy exhaled, trembling. "I'm so sorry you felt that." Bianca nodded slowly. "Every time I thought about that night, my tummy hurt. So I thought maybe if I went back to my old room, you and Daddy would try again." Daisy shook her head slowly, not in disagreement, but in awe of how deeply Bianca had carried her memory. "I wanted you two to see each other's faces again," Bianca whispered. "Not the sad ones. The ones from before." Daisy hugged her tightly, pressing her lips to the top of her daughter's head. "Oh, baby, you never had to do that." Bianca sniffed. "I know, but I just wanted our family not to be broken anymore." Daisy closed her eyes, holding Bianca's head against her shoulder. After a long silence, Bianca pulled back. "Are you mad at me?" "No," Daisy said quickly. "I'm not mad at you at all. I'm proud of you for telling me the truth." Bianca exhaled softly. "Okay." Daisy adjusted her daughter on her lap. "But baby, I need you to understand something important." Bianca blinked up at her. "You never have to fix grown-up problems," Daisy said gently. "That's Mommy's and Daddy's job, not yours. You're supposed to be a kid. You're supposed to play and laugh and feel safe, not worry about us." Bianca nodded, but Daisy could tell she didn't fully believe it yet. Daisy wiped her daughter's cheek. "And you did nothing wrong. Not one thing." Bianca rested her head on Daisy's chest. "I'm sorry if I scared you." "You did," Daisy whispered. "But I understand why now." Bianca nodded again, and the two of them sat quietly for a moment, the emotional truth settling like soft dust around them. After a long silence, Bianca spoke again. "Mommy." "Yes. Are you going to talk to Daddy?" Daisy nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm going to talk to him." "Soon." Bianca shifted slightly on her lap. "Are you scared?" Daisy exhaled softly. "A little." Bianca tapped Daisy's hand with her small fingers. "It's okay. I'll be right here when you're done." Daisy smiled, touched by the innocence of that reassurance. "Thank you, baby." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Bianca looked up again. "Mommy," she said, voice small, "do you still love Daddy?" The question hit Daisy harder than she expected. She didn't answer immediately, not because she didn't know, but because the truth was too complicated to express in one sentence. Her love for Reggie was layered, with pain, confusion, history, and something else she wasn't ready to name yet. Daisy stroked her daughter's cheek. "I have love for him, yes." Bianca smiled softly. "I knew it." Daisy tilted her head. "How?" "Because when you talk about him, your eyes change," Bianca answered simply. "You don't get mad. You get quiet." Daisy felt her heart squeeze. Children notice everything. Bianca then wrapped her arms around Daisy's neck. "I'm glad you're going to talk to him." Daisy kissed her forehead. "I am too." Bianca rested her head on her shoulder. "Can I sleep here with you tonight?" Daisy nodded. "Of course, sweetheart." She lay back gently with Bianca curled against her, the weight of the moment settling between them like a soft blanket of truth. After several quiet minutes, Daisy's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She reached for it, careful not to jostle Bianca too much. It was a message from Reggie. Daisy stared at the screen, her heart pacing. Bianca lifted her head slightly. "Is that Daddy?" "Yes," Daisy said softly. Bianca nodded. "You can answer." Daisy hesitated for a long second, then typed slowly. A reply came almost instantly. "Thank you." Daisy closed her eyes for a moment. This was the moment where the story shifted. This was the moment where healing finally became possible. She placed her phone down and whispered gently. Bianca murmured sleepily, "Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth." Bianca tucked herself closer. "That's what families do." Daisy held her daughter tighter, tears slipping quietly down her cheek. And with her daughter safe in her arms, Daisy made a decision she had avoided for years, one she now knew she had to make. She was going to talk to Reggie, face to face, not to fight, not to blame, but to understand, and to finally start healing the wound that had been left open far too long. Before she drifted to sleep, Daisy whispered softly into the darkness, "Maybe it's time we stop being afraid. If you're still here watching this story unfold, please hit that like button and drop a comment. Stories like this reach more people when you engage. Thank you for being here with us." Bianca exhaled softly, drifting into sleep. But Daisy stayed awake a little longer, thinking, hoping, preparing. Because tomorrow, she would face Reggie again. Not as the woman who walked away broken, not as the woman who misunderstood her own worth, but as a mother, a partner in healing, and a woman finally ready for the truth. The next morning came quietly, too quietly. Daisy woke before Bianca, slipping gently from the couch without disturbing her sleeping daughter. She took a moment to look at her, small, peaceful, curled into the blanket like the emotional weight she carried yesterday had finally settled into rest. Daisy brushed a curl from Bianca's forehead and whispered, "I'll be right back." Then she stood, exhaled slowly, and walked toward the kitchen, where the early Chicago light filtered through the blinds, striping the floor in soft lines. Today she had to face Reggie, not with anger, not with fear, not with accusations, but with truth, because Bianca needed them to talk, and Daisy knew she owed her daughter that much. She drank a small glass of water, set it down, and leaned against the counter, breathing deeply, grounding herself for the conversation that had been delayed for years. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from Reggie. "Is today a good time to talk?" Daisy stared at the screen, feeling her pulse rise, but not with panic this time. More like readiness. She typed back, "Yes, I'll come by in an hour," he replied instantly. "I'll be here." Daisy turned toward the couch again. Bianca stirred awake, lifting her head sleepily. "Mommy, good morning, baby," Daisy said softly, walking over. Bianca rubbed her eyes. "Are you going to talk to Daddy now?" Daisy nodded. "Yes, sweetheart." Bianca sat up slowly. "Can I come?" Daisy smiled gently. "Not this time. Mommy and Daddy need to talk alone first." Bianca nodded, but Daisy could see the nervous excitement behind her eyes. Daisy cupped her daughter's cheek. When we're done, I'll come get you, okay?" "Okay," Bianca whispered. Daisy kissed her forehead and helped her settle back down on the couch with a blanket and her favorite cartoon playing softly. Then Daisy slipped on her coat, picked up her keys, and headed toward the door. Bianca called out softly, "Mommy?" Daisy turned. "Yes, baby? Don't be scared." Daisy blinked, surprised. "I'm not." Bianca gave a tiny smile. "Your eyes look like they're thinking too hard." Daisy laughed softly, one of the first real laughs she'd had in weeks. "I'll be okay." She blew her daughter a kiss, stepped outside, and closed the door gently behind her. The drive to Reggie's mansion felt different this time, less heavy, less frantic. A strange sense of calm settled over Daisy as she drove down the now familiar route. Chicago's late morning breeze rustled branches along the roadside, the sky bright but soft. When she turned into the private road, she felt her breath catch, not from fear, but from the reality of what she came to do. This conversation was long overdue. She parked, stepped out, and walked toward the front door. Before she could knock, the door opened. Reggie stood there, eyes soft, expression cautious. He wore a simple gray long-sleeve shirt and dark pants, no polished businessman exterior, no billionaire aura. Just him. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hi," Daisy replied. He stepped aside. "Come in." She walked past him, the familiar scent of cedar and faint vanilla filling her senses. For once, though, it didn't tighten her chest. It didn't pull her into old memories. It simply greeted her, a space she used to know well, but no longer feared. They settled in the living room, sitting across from each other. Daisy wasn't curled up defensively. She sat comfortably, hands resting in her lap, spine straight, heart open but cautious. Reggie leaned forward slightly. "How's Bianca?" "She's okay," Daisy said. "We talked. She told me everything she's been feeling." Reggie's jaw tightened. "She's been carrying too much." "She has," Daisy said. "But she was honest with me, and I needed to hear it." Reggie nodded, his fingers tapping lightly against his knee. "I'll talk to her too. I want her to know she doesn't have to carry anything alone." Daisy studied him for a moment. His eyes looked tired but clear, uncertain but honest. She took a breath. "Reggie, we need to talk about everything." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'm ready." Daisy folded her hands once more and met his gaze. "Last night, what you told me, it changed everything I thought I understood." Reggie nodded slowly, guilt flickering in his expression. "I know, but I need to hear the full truth," Daisy continued. "No softening, no editing. I want everything." Reggie exhaled, steadying himself. "You deserve that." He paused, rubbed his palms against his jeans, then began. "When things got tense between us," he said, "I thought I was doing the right thing by asking for help. I didn't know my mother had her own plans." Daisy nodded, patient but firm. "Go on." Reggie swallowed. "She told me you were unhappy, that you felt out of place, that you were already thinking of leaving." Daisy's eyes lowered. "And you believed her?" Reggie nodded slowly. "I did. I shouldn't have, but I did." Daisy clasped her hands tighter but said nothing. Reggie continued. "I didn't know she was manipulating messages. I didn't know she deleted things. I didn't know she changed what you wrote. I just saw what she showed me, and it broke me." His voice cracked, not breaking down but breaking open. "I thought you wanted out," he said, "and I thought maybe letting you go was the only way to not make things worse." Daisy looked up, pain softening into understanding. "You thought you were protecting me." "Yes," he said, "but I was weak. I should have come to you. I should have asked. I should have trusted you over her." "You didn't," Daisy said gently, but not accusingly, just truthfully. "No," he admitted, shame settling in his shoulders. "I didn't." Daisy leaned back slightly, breathing evenly. "Reggie, my upbringing taught me to speak up, to talk things out, to fight for love when it matters. That's how my family handled conflict. Loud sometimes, messy sometimes, but honest." Reggie's eyes softened. He listened carefully. "I grew up in a house where silence meant trouble," Daisy continued, "where love was loud, where affection was obvious. You knew when people cared." Reggie nodded slowly. "My house was the opposite." "I know," Daisy said. "Your world was quiet, Controlled, reserved, problems got hidden, emotions got tucked away. Talking about hurt wasn't normal. Reggie rubbed his jaw. That's exactly how it was. We were raised differently, Daisy said. Not wrong, just different. Reggie nodded again, deeper this time. And I didn't know how to blend our worlds. I was scared of doing it wrong. Daisy's voice softened. I didn't know you were scared. Reggie looked at her, eyes filled with regret. I didn't know how to say it. A long pause settled between them. Calm, reflective, not tense. Daisy looked down briefly, then back up. Reggie, I blamed myself for so long. I thought you stopped loving me. I thought I failed. Reggie's face tightened. Daisy, I never stopped. She inhaled sharply but didn't break. I believed you didn't want me anymore, she said quietly. I carried that pain for years. I'm so sorry, Reggie whispered. I should have protected you. I should have protected us. I should have protected our family from her. Daisy looked away for a moment, blinking back the emotion pressing behind her eyes. Reggie, she said softly, you failed us. But I see now, you also failed yourself. He looked taken aback. You've been living under her shadow your whole life, Daisy continued. You were taught to hide what hurts. I was taught to face it head on. We were trying to love each other from two different worlds without knowing how. Reggie exhaled deeply, absorbing her words. Daisy leaned forward slightly, her voice gentle. I don't hate you. I never did. Reggie's eyes glistened. I thought you did. No, Daisy said. I hurt, but I didn't hate. He inhaled shakily. Then quietly he asked, Can we fix this? Daisy didn't answer immediately. She let the question sit between them, serious, heavy, honest. Finally, she looked at him with a softness he hadn't seen in years. I don't know where this leads, she said, but I'm not closing the door. Reggie blinked, stunned but hopeful. Daisy continued, We owe our daughter honesty. We owe ourselves closure. And maybe we owe our past a chance to breathe again. Reggie nodded slowly, almost reverently. I'll take whatever chance you give me. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Two people who had once been one, fractured by lies, now tentatively rebuilding trust. Then Daisy spoke again, gently. Let's start with talking. Real talking. Not the past, but the truth. Little steps. Reggie smiled. Small, genuine, fragile but real. Little steps, he repeated. Daisy exhaled deeply, feeling something inside her unclench. For the first time since their breakup, she didn't feel anger. She felt possibility. Not promises. Possibility. The smallest warmth began to form in her chest. Quiet, slow, honest. For the first time, her heart softened. And Reggie could see it. He didn't speak. He didn't push. He didn't overwhelm her. He simply sat with her in that moment. Their first real step toward healing. The afternoon sun cast a warm amber glow across Reggie's neighborhood as Daisy pulled into the driveway once more. This time, her hands didn't tremble on the steering wheel. Her heart wasn't racing. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness inside her, like her body finally recognized the path toward peace. She cut the engine, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The breeze brushed softly against her face, lifting a small curl near her cheek. She smoothed it gently, then walked toward the front door with purposeful steps, not rushed, not hesitant. Just ready. Reggie opened the door before she even knocked. Their eyes met. Something had changed between them, something subtle but undeniable. The air wasn't thick with pain anymore. It didn't feel like two people walking through the ruins of an old life. It felt like two people cautiously exploring a place where happiness once lived, wondering if it might live there again. Hey, he said softly. Hi, she replied, matching his tone. Come in. She stepped inside, sliding out of her coat. It surprised her when Reggie reached out, not to take the coat from her as he normally would, but to gently steady her hand that grazed his as she folded it over her arm. It was a small touch, barely anything, but the warmth of it lingered. They walked to the living room. No tension, no stiffness, just quiet familiarity. The same room that had once held arguments, silence, confusion, now felt different, lighter, as if the truth from yesterday had cracked open space for something new. Daisy sat on one end of the couch, and Reggie took the chair across from her. Not too far, not too close. Respectful distance, honest distance. A silence settled between them, but unlike before, it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the calm before a meaningful conversation. "So," Daisy began, folding her hands in her lap, "we have a lot to figure out, but I'm glad we talked yesterday." Reggie nodded, leaning forward slightly. "I am too. I haven't slept like that in years." Daisy smiled faintly. "Me neither." They held each other's gaze for a few seconds longer than necessary, neither backing away, neither overwhelmed by memories this time. Just understanding. Reggie cleared his throat. "I was thinking, if you're open to it, maybe we could talk about some of the good parts too, not just the heavy stuff." Daisy raised an eyebrow softly. "The good parts?" "Yeah," Reggie said, a small smile teasing his lips. "The things that made everything worth it, before everything went wrong." A warmth tugged at Daisy's chest. Memories she had buried or refused to revisit stirred gently. She nodded. "All right, we can do that." Reggie sat back, eyes softening. "Do you remember the first time we took Bianca to the museum downtown? She was so excited about everything that she ran off and hugged that giant dinosaur skeleton." Daisy laughed, really laughed. A full sound, warm, unguarded. "Oh my goodness," she said, covering her mouth. "She scared that poor tour guide half to death." Reggie joined in the laughter. He thought she was trying to climb it. Daisy shook her head, still laughing. She was 3. She thought it was real. Reggie leaned his head back, smiling at the memory. "That was one of my favorite days." Daisy's laughter softened into a gentle smile. "Yeah, it was a good day." For a moment they sat in the glow of old happiness, comfortable, familiar, and strangely healing. Reggie continued. "You had on that blue dress, the one with the soft sleeves." Daisy blinked. "You remember that?" "I remember everything," he said quietly. Her breath caught, not from pain but from surprise. Before she could respond, Reggie added, "It was the day I realized I was in love with you." The words hit her like a soft wave, warm, unexpected, deeply felt. Her heart fluttered, not in panic but in recognition. "Reggie," she whispered. "I'm not saying that to complicate things," he said quickly but gently. "I'm saying it because it's true, and I think we deserve to talk about the whole truth, good and bad." Daisy nodded slowly, absorbing that. She crossed one leg over the other, resting her hands gently on her knee. "Okay, then, let me tell you something too." Reggie's eyes lifted. "I loved how you used to hold Bianca's hand everywhere we went," Daisy said. "Even when she got older. Even when she pretended she didn't like it." Reggie smiled softly. "She always liked it. I know she did," Daisy said. "It's just, not a lot of men are that gentle, that present. You were." He exhaled, visibly moved by her acknowledgement. She continued, "Sometimes I think I was so focused on what went wrong that I forgot how good we were when things were right." Reggie nodded slowly. "We were good. Better than either of us realized." A calm fell between them, soft, warm, and full of meaning. Reggie leaned his elbows on his knees. "I didn't think we'd ever sit like this again. I didn't think you'd ever look at me without pain in your eyes." Daisy tilted her head slightly. "I didn't think so either, but healing is strange. When the truth shows up, things start shifting," Reggie whispered. "I'm grateful you gave me a chance to explain." "You earned it," Daisy said quietly. He looked stunned by her words, but encouraged. Just then they heard small footsteps at the top of the stairs. Both looked up. Bianca stood there in a soft yellow pajama set, hair slightly messy, hugging her stuffed elephant. Her eyes widened when she saw her mom and dad sitting together, not arguing, not tense, but smiling. She gasped softly. "Mommy?" Daisy and Reggie stood at the same time. "Hey, sweetheart," Daisy said gently. Bianca rushed down the stairs so fast Daisy had to brace herself before bending down to catch her daughter in a warm hug. Reggie knelt beside them, touching Bianca's back gently. Bianca pulled back, her eyes glowing. "You're both here. Together," Daisy smiled. "We're talking, baby. Just talking." Bianca's smile widened as she reached one arm around Daisy's neck and the other around Reggie's. "You both smiled," she whispered. "I saw it." Daisy kissed her daughter's cheek. "Yes, you did." Reggie looked at Daisy with a softness that wasn't heavy with regret anymore. It was gratitude. Quiet, honest gratitude. Bianca wriggled out of their arms and stood between them proudly. I think the house feels different. Daisy raised her eyebrows. Different how? Like it's breathing again, Bianca said simply. Reggie looked at Daisy, marveling at how accurate that felt. Daisy rested a hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. Maybe that's because we're all trying, in our own ways. Bianca nodded like that made perfect sense. Reggie smiled. How about breakfast? I can make pancakes, Bianca gasped dramatically. Your pancakes? The fluffy ones? Reggie chuckled. The very ones. Daisy felt something warm tug inside her. She hadn't been part of a relaxed, gentle morning like this in Reggie's house in years, but she didn't feel out of place. She didn't feel anxious. She felt present. Okay, Daisy said softly. Pancakes sound good. Bianca threw her hands up. Family breakfast. Reggie froze, not with sadness, not with guilt, but with something like awe. Then he looked at Daisy, silently asking if that was okay. She gave a small smile. Family breakfast. A moment that mattered. The kitchen filled with the warm scent of batter and vanilla as Reggie whisked ingredients in a bowl. Bianca stood on a step stool beside him, stirring with a little too much enthusiasm. Daisy leaned against the counter, arms folded loosely, watching them. Every now and then Reggie glanced her way, not in desperation like before, not in regret, but in gentle acknowledgement. She didn't look away. Instead, she smiled. Oh, I've always been great at this, he teased. No, Bianca laughed. Mommy used to fix yours because you made them too big. Reggie looked at Daisy, mock offended. Is that true? Daisy shrugged playfully. You like them the size of car tires. Reggie laughed, deep, genuine. It warmed Daisy's chest more than she expected. Breakfast came together easily. The three of them sat at the table, Bianca in the middle, Daisy on her left, Reggie on her right. It felt almost surreal how naturally their conversation flowed. Bianca talked endlessly about her school art project, showing hand gestures too big for her small arms. Reggie listened intently. Daisy laughed softly. And for a moment, they looked like a family that had never been broken, not because they were pretending, but because the truth had finally made space for healing. After breakfast, Bianca ran into the living room to find a movie, leaving Daisy and Reggie alone at the kitchen table. The shift in energy was gentle but noticeable. Reggie took a steady breath. Thank you for being here today. Daisy nodded. Thank you for making it feel easy. It wasn't forced, Reggie said. It felt right. Daisy looked down at her hands for a moment, then back at him. Yeah, it did. They held each other's gaze again, longer this time, not as exes, not as strangers, but as two people remembering something important without drowning in it. This was the moment where the heart speaks before pride interrupts. Reggie leaned forward slightly. Daisy. She inhaled softly, waiting. He didn't continue yet. He just looked at her, as if making sure he wasn't imagining the warmth between them. Then, slowly, he smiled. And Daisy felt something inside her respond. Not fear, not sadness, not confusion, just possibility. Her heart remembered him, even after everything, even after pride tried to bury the memories. And for the first time, Daisy didn't push the feeling away. The warmth of breakfast lingered long after the dishes had been cleared. It wasn't the food, though the pancakes had been as fluffy as Bianca claimed. They always were. It was something else, something quiet and unfamiliar. Ease, not the forced kind, not the fragile eggshell walking kind, real ease. Daisy found herself standing near the window, watching Reggie and Bianca spread out on the living room rug as they built a tower from wooden blocks. Bianca insisted on making it taller than Mommy, which she proudly announced was pretty tall. Reggie gasped dramatically. Pretty tall? Your mom is taller than half my board members. Daisy laughed from the other room. You're exaggerating. Maybe, Reggie called back, but it makes a great story. Bianca giggled and handed him another block. Make it taller, Daddy. I'm trying. This thing is wobbling. Daisy watched the two of them, Bianca leaning forward on her elbows, Reggie carefully steadying the top layer, both completely absorbed in their shared creation. It struck Daisy in a way that made her chest warm. This house used to feel cold to her, too quiet, too structured, But right now, with the sound of block pieces clacking together, with Bianca's bright voice filling the space, with Reggie laughing without restraint, the house didn't feel cold anymore. It felt alive. Daisy walked toward them, kneeling beside Bianca. "Wow, you two are doing an amazing job." Bianca's curls bounced as she nodded. "Mommy, look. Daddy said this tower is the most stable one he's ever built." Reggie smirked, which is a lie, but we're committed to the bit. Daisy shook her head playfully. "I swear you two are unstoppable together." Bianca raised her hands triumphantly. "Because we're a team." Reggie glanced at Daisy, softly, knowingly, and said, "We've always been a good team." Daisy met his gaze and something tender passed between them. Not nostalgia, not regret. Something new, something built on truth, not illusion. She sat with them as they added more blocks. The tower grew taller, leaning dangerously to one side. Bianca squealed dramatically every time it wobbled. "Be careful," she shouted, covering her eyes. "Daddy, don't let it fall." Reggie steadied the base. "If it falls, that's okay. We'll build another one." Daisy looked at him sharply. That sentence wasn't about the blocks. Reggie held her gaze for a lingering moment. No pressure, no expectation, just honesty. Before turning back to the tower, Daisy's chest tightened in a way that didn't hurt. It actually felt good. He was changing. He was showing his growth, not with big speeches, but with small truths. They finished the tower, and against all odds it stood tall, nearly as tall as Bianca had hoped. When it finally toppled, Bianca screamed in delight instead of disappointment. "Let's build another one." Reggie leaned back, groaning dramatically. "Give me 5 minutes. I'm too old for block engineering." Daisy laughed. "You barely moved." "My back moved," Reggie muttered. "That counts." Bianca giggled uncontrollably. "Mommy, Daddy is funny today." Daisy looked at him, warmth pooling in her chest. "Yeah," she said softly, "he is." Bianca's attention shifted to cartoons. She plopped onto the couch, crossing her legs and pulling a blanket over herself. Reggie gathered the blocks into the storage box while Daisy helped. Their hands brushed once, then again. Neither pulled away immediately. The touch wasn't accidental anymore. It was intentional, quiet, meaningful. When they finally stood, Reggie exhaled softly. "Daisy, can we talk in the kitchen?" "Of course," she said. They walked into the kitchen. Daisy leaned against the counter, arms relaxed at her sides. Reggie stood across from her, hands shoved into his pockets, a nervous gesture, but not closed off. "I've been thinking a lot," he began, "about CO parenting, about how we've been doing things." Daisy nodded slowly. "Okay, you carried so much alone," he said. "More than I understood, more than I respected. You were doing everything for Bianca while I thought I was doing enough. But enough isn't the same as present." Daisy swallowed gently. The admission wasn't small. Reggie continued, voice sincere. "I wasn't there the way I should have been, not just physically, emotionally. I didn't fight hard enough for my own child." Daisy didn't interrupt him. She let him speak, let him unravel the truth the right way this time. "I don't ever want Bianca to feel like she has 2 separate lives," Reggie said. "2 separate homes, 2 different versions of us." Daisy exhaled softly. "She's never said it like that, but I think she feels it." "I know she does," Reggie said. "That's why I want to do better. Not for you, not even for me, for her." Daisy nodded. "So what does better look like to you?" Reggie stepped closer, not too close, but enough that his sincerity filled the space between them. "It looks like partnership, real partnership, not convenience, not formality, actual communication, setting routines together, showing up together, making decisions together." Daisy crossed her arms, not defensively but thoughtfully. "You're talking like a man who has been doing homework." He chuckled softly. "I have. Because I don't want to repeat the past." Daisy studied him carefully. "And what about your mother? You know she created a lot of the distance." Reggie nodded firmly. "She doesn't get to be part of our decisions anymore. Not now. Not ever again. I'm setting boundaries. She'll adjust or she won't. But I'm not choosing her comfort over my family again." A flicker of warmth spread through Daisy's chest. "That's a big step for you. It's time," he said quietly. "Way past time." Daisy looked at the floor for a moment, then lifted her eyes again. "Reggie, I'm not the same woman who left. I have changed too. I have found my voice, my independence, my sense of self." "I know," Reggie said, "and I respect that more than you know. They stood in silence for a moment, an honest silence, not a strained one. Then Daisy asked softly, "So what do you want?" Reggie inhaled deeply. "I want us to rebuild as parents. I want to earn your trust again, not demand it, not assume it, earn it. And whatever comes after that, I want it to come naturally." Daisy nodded slowly. "That sounds fair." Reggie smiled faintly. "You sound relieved." "I am," Daisy admitted, "because I was afraid you'd try to force the past back together. But I want something healthy, something grounded." Reggie ran a hand through his hair, but not in frustration, more like someone thinking clearly for the first time. "That's what I want too." Daisy let her shoulders relax. "Okay then, let's do this properly." He stepped a little closer. "Together?" "Together," Daisy said. A shift happened then. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, but undeniably intimate. Then from the doorway, they both turned. Bianca stood there, holding her blanket, cheeks rosy from the warmth of the living room. She looked from Daisy to Reggie, her small eyes sparkling. "You're smiling," she whispered. "Both of you." Reggie and Daisy glanced at each other, and Daisy spoke first. "Yeah, baby, we're smiling." Bianca padded into the kitchen, dragging her blanket behind her. "Is this a good smile or a worried smile?" "A good one," Reggie said gently. Bianca tugged at her blanket anxiously. "Does this mean we're gonna be okay?" Daisy knelt down and cupped her daughter's face. "It means we're trying, and trying is how good things start." Bianca's eyes filled with soft relief. She turned to Reggie, who knelt down too. "And I promise," Reggie said, "you won't have to sneak anywhere again. We'll talk, we'll share, we'll make things better together." Bianca wrapped her arms around both their necks, pulling them into a family hug. Daisy felt Reggie's arm brush against hers. She didn't pull away. Bianca held them tighter. "Can we have movie day, the three of us, like before?" Reggie looked at Daisy. "Yes," they said in unison. Bianca cheered and ran to the living room to grab the remote. Reggie stood and offered Daisy his hand to help her up. She didn't need the help, but she took his hand anyway. His fingers wrapped gently around hers, and in that one small gesture, Daisy felt something undeniable. Her emotional walls, those carefully constructed guards she had built out of heartbreak and fear, did not crumble. They gently lowered. This wasn't the past repeating itself. This was new, slow, respectful, genuine. And as they walked together into the living room, Daisy realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. This house wasn't cold anymore. It was warming, healing, opening, and so was she. The living room felt warm, not just from the afternoon sunlight spilling softly through the tall windows, but from the energy inside the room. Daisy sat at one end of the couch, Bianca nestled between her and Reggie, a blanket wrapped around the child like a tiny cocoon. On the TV, an animated movie played in bright colors, but only Bianca was fully invested. Daisy's attention drifted just a little, to the space around her that felt different than it ever had in this house. She looked at the rug where the wooden blocks still sat half scattered from earlier. She looked at the kitchen doorway where she and Reggie had talked honestly, finally. She looked at Bianca's happy little kicks every time something exciting happened on the screen. Everything in this house seemed to be exhaling all at once. No coldness, no tension, no distance, just healing, just family. Daisy shifted slightly, and without thinking, Bianca scooted closer, resting her head against Daisy's arm. On the other side of Bianca, Reggie's hand rested lightly across the back of the couch, not touching Daisy, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Bianca sat up when the movie broke into a dance scene. "Mommy, Daddy, look!" She wiggled her arms wildly, and both Daisy and Reggie burst into laughter at her enthusiasm. "You're going to knock somebody out with those moves," Daisy teased. Bianca gasped. "No, I'm not. I'm a professional." Reggie grinned. "Oh, really? When did this happen?" "Since always," Bianca declared proudly, resuming her dramatic wiggle dance. Daisy shook her head and whispered under her breath, "She gets this from you." "Me?" Reggie pointed to himself innocently. "Yes," Daisy said, smiling. He shrugged. Guilty. They both laughed softly. Every now and then their eyes met, and for the first time in years there was no flinch, no pain, no shields, just two people who remembered what warmth felt like and realized they had missed it. About an hour into the movie, Bianca started blinking slowly, her eyelids heavy. She leaned into Daisy at first, then gradually tilted toward Reggie, caught halfway between her parents in that soft, safe place only children know. Reggie gently adjusted her head so it rested comfortably on his lap. Daisy smoothed Bianca's curls with tender fingers. "She's exhausted," Daisy murmured. Reggie nodded. "Big emotions do that to kids. To adults too," Daisy added quietly. He looked at her, really looked, and nodded again. "You're right." A peaceful quiet settled between them. Daisy rested her hand on the couch cushion, and a moment later Reggie's fingers lightly brushed hers, not grabbing, not pulling, just noticing. A gentle acknowledgement. Daisy didn't pull away. She didn't tense. She let the contact exist, because for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a risk. It felt like a truth. After a quiet moment, Reggie whispered, "I'm really glad you came today." Daisy turned her head slightly toward him. "I am too, and I'm glad we got to laugh," he added. "I didn't realize how much I missed it." Daisy smiled softly. "Me neither," he exhaled. "I thought maybe laughter between us was gone for good." Daisy looked at him with a warmth that surprised even her. It wasn't gone, just buried. "Do you think," Reggie started, but paused. "Do you think we can keep building moments like this?" "Moments?" Daisy asked gently. "Yeah," he said softly. "Little steps, real steps." Daisy's heart softened visibly. "I think that's exactly what we should do." The tension, what little remained, melted instantly, replaced by something calm and promising. Not rushed, not romanticized, just real. Reggie nodded slowly. "Good." Bianca stirred slightly, stretching like a sleepy kitten before settling again. Reggie brushed a curl off her forehead. "She's been wanting this so long," Daisy breathed deeply. "I know. Thank you for giving her this moment," he whispered. Daisy blinked slowly, absorbing that. "You gave it to her too, Reggie." He swallowed softly. "I want to give her a lot more now." Daisy nodded. "Then we will." His eyebrows lifted. "We?" "Yes," Daisy said clearly. "We." Reggie didn't smile right away. Instead, he nodded, soft, steady, grateful. "That means more than you think," Daisy whispered back. "I know." Bianca remained asleep, curled safely between them. Reggie looked toward the hallway. "Can I show you something?" Daisy hesitated only for a second. "Okay." Reggie lifted Bianca gently into his arms so she wouldn't wake. Her head rested on his shoulder, her small hands dangling sleepily against his chest. Daisy followed him down the hallway until they reached the room. Bianca's room. The one Daisy had seen untouched for years. Reggie pushed the door open with his shoulder. The room was exactly as Daisy remembered it. The pastel walls, the framed drawings Bianca made at age 4, the toy chest in the corner, the little lamp shaped like a crescent moon. Daisy stepped inside, her throat tightening, not with sadness, but with understanding. Reggie adjusted Bianca in his arms, whispering, "I never changed anything, not one thing." Daisy nodded, emotion rising in her chest. "I see that. I wasn't holding on to the past," he said softly. "I was holding on to her, hoping she'd always know she still had space here, that she was always welcome." Daisy touched the corner of Bianca's old dresser. She always felt that. Reggie turned slightly so Daisy could see Bianca's peaceful face against his shoulder. "I'm glad." For several seconds they stood quietly, Daisy looking at the room, Reggie holding their daughter, both of them breathing in the shared truth of what was lost and what could now be restored. Daisy placed her hand gently against the wall. "You kept her childhood alive in here. Both of ours," Reggie said quietly. Daisy's heart pressed hard against her ribs, not painfully but with warmth that felt long overdue. They returned to the living room and placed Bianca gently on the couch, covering her with her blanket. She didn't stir. Reggie and Daisy stepped a few feet away so they wouldn't wake her. Reggie turned toward Daisy, his expression steady. "I need to say something, and I want you to hear it all the way through before you respond." Daisy nodded. "I'm listening." Reggie took a slow breath. "I don't want to go back to what we were. Not the way it was. Not the version that broke us. I don't want to pretend nothing happened or force something just because we shared a past. Daisy's eyebrows softened, surprised by his clarity. He continued, I want us to move forward, not backward. I want another chance. But this time, not with money, not with fear, not with pressure, not with expectations. He stepped closer, carefully, respectfully. This time he said quietly, I want to love you the right way, with honesty, with listening, with patience, with real partnership. Daisy inhaled slowly. Her heart beat steady but full. Reggie added, if you ever give me another chance, I want it to be because you see growth, not because of nostalgia, not because of what we had, but because of what we can build. Daisy didn't respond right away. She let the weight of his words settle. She looked at Bianca. She looked at the living room. She looked at Reggie. Her voice was soft but certain. Reggie, I don't want the past either. His breath caught slightly. I want something new, Daisy continued. Something healthier, something safer, something honest. And what you showed me this week, what you've shown Bianca. She paused, feeling emotion press gently at her throat. It means everything. Reggie held still, afraid to interrupt. Daisy stepped toward him, not rushed, not dramatic. Just sure, another chance, she said softly, is possible. Reggie's eyes filled with warmth so genuine it softened every line in his face. But, Daisy added, raising a finger, it has to be slow, steady, healthy. Reggie nodded immediately. Anything you need. And it has to be real, Daisy said. Not guilt, not trying to fix the past. Real, it will be, he said. She exhaled. Then, yes. Reggie inhaled sharply, not in shock, but in gratitude that shook his chest. He didn't step closer. He didn't grab her. He didn't rush the moment. He simply whispered, Thank you. Daisy smiled, a real beautiful smile. Thank you for becoming the man you are right now. They remained standing there for a long moment, breathing the same quiet air. Mommy, Bianca murmured sleepily from the couch. Bianca stretched her arms up. Mommy, Daddy, are you done talking? Bianca blinked slowly. Are we okay? Reggie knelt beside her, brushing her cheek. We're better than okay. Bianca's eyes widened with hope. Really? Bianca pulled them closer, cheeks glowing. We're a team again. Daisy kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, sweetheart. We are. Reggie squeezed Bianca's hand gently. We're going to do this right. Bianca beamed, then wrapped her arms around both of their necks in a tight hug. The three of them stayed like that, wrapped in a warm, honest embrace. No old wounds leading the moment, just a family, finally learning how to love each other the right way. And Daisy felt it fully. This wasn't the ending of a story. It was the beginning of a new one,